Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 315. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun. Chris, when you came onto the video today, I saw your shirt just briefly with the mic the way it is kind of now. So it was split up and I'm like, oh my God, he has a Monokuma shirt on. But it's not. It's a smiley face in it.
Yeah, it's a giant smiley face. Dude, I gotta say, man, I feel like I woke up like 10 times last night for no discernible reason. Terrible sleep. I feel fine now, but like, what a waste. It's like a terrible night's sleep.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Awful.
I very rarely get a good night's sleep. I have a thing where Micah tells me I should go get it checked out, but I just don't. Because it's been my whole life basically, where I just have to pee all the time. The reason I'm not worried about it is I don't have to pee all the time. One of the great advantages of starting to drink bourbon instead of beer when I was younger was that I stopped having to go in a bar, like go to the bathroom. It would be a joke with my friends, like every 10, 15, 20 minutes when you're 3 beers deep, like I gotta go pee. And so every 3 or 4 hours, I got to get up and pee. And I was telling her, I'm like, I wonder if it's like some, when you get the old style cylindrical juice canister and then you have to pop a hole in it and you have to pop another hole in it or it doesn't flow. I'm like, something like that situation going in where I'm not emptying out completely, but this has always been the case. And so I can never do more than like 4 hours at a time, no matter what.
Really? Like even like since you were like a teenager?
Yeah, since I was like, it only came out really, I would always have to pee in the middle of the night. It would, like when Micah doesn't get up at all when she goes to bed. And I have to get up probably at least twice in that time. But that's always been the case, but I didn't really realize it until I started drinking beer. So maybe in like my late high school years or whatever, I'm like, holy shit, dude, I have to pee all of the time. That's why all of these years later, I don't think it's a medical issue. I think it's just that I either have a small bladder, something's pressing on it, or it's full of something. Maybe it's like 80% full of, I don't know what, bile. And then there's only 20% of the volume left for the pee. But I hear you, man, because I can't. And by the way, I've unwound from the Ativan and now I've unwound from the hydroxyzine as well. So I'm shooting through space, buddy. Dustin Furman, executive producer. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you today?
Greetings. I brought a little show and tell. I got a new toy. I wanted to show Chris in particular. So let me.
It's a baby.
What do you think of this here, Chris? Pretty nice.
Oh, is that Gear?
Huh?
5?
That's Gear 5, Chris. The weeb in you is still strong. Look at this. Look at this. This is practically is a baby, Colin. Now,
that's
to be
crazy.
honest,
that's cool though.
I didn't look at how big it was when I bought it on Amazon.
How much did it cost?
So, well, just like Tronbon, I gotta clarify. I use Amazon credit card. I refuse to use the points for anything of value. It's got to be for dumb shit. I had $100, actually a little over 100. So I only had to pay 40 for this, but I think it was 160. Oh, that's not
bad. I thought it would be more than that.
Yeah, it was 160, which in the world of anime statues apparently is cheap. So, so Gear 5 Luffy's, he'll just hang out here for this episode, but we just got to this point in the show. Big deal. Very big deal. I'm sure you know all about it, Chris. But I'm doing great. I'm fantastic. I was having a small conversation with Colin before you got in here, Chris, that right now is a weird limbo time where Holly's due date is the 31st. And so I put out a message to everybody like, here's the game plan. Because I don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen.
My joke as well. In that.
Oh, the hilarious joke. Yeah, right.
Dustin sent out this huge post on Discord about like all these different things that we need, like that need to be accounted for and what's happening now. And then I was like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah. You had us all.
It was supposed to be like, I don't know. I didn't know anything that was it. But then he's like, no, I'm telling you. I'm like, I know. I was just trying to be a little funny guy.
No, absolutely
just a little funny guy.
Yeah,
a funny guy.
A funny feller. Did so when you got that, how long did that take to get to you?
2 days.
Oh, damn.
Amazon. So
I feel like I bought a stupid expense. Oh well, I guess I pre-ordered it. Never mind. I was wondering why it was taking forever for. I made a really unwise purchase of a similar of a similar style,
Right.
a couple months ago because I think it was Dark Horse had like a Halo 2 statue for like $200, and I was like, that looks too good.
Oh,
so I
yeah.
got it, and I'm waiting.
Embracer needs your money, man. So.
Yeah, I'll have it. It looks dope as hell. So I'm like, I like statues. They're cool.
Statues are cool. I've never
Who
had
is that?
one.
I don't even know who that is. What is this from?
This is from One Piece.
Oh, One Piece.
Yeah, this is Luffy.
Oh,
But he's
Luffy. Why
powered
is the foot
up.
so prominent in the statue?
Well, no spoilers, but he's very big in this scene.
Oh, okay.
But there's
I
a
see.
point when he's very big.
I see. Okay. Well, another jarred statue for you. Gotta get a big jar for that.
I was going to say, this is going to take a Tupperware or like a big tub,
Yeah,
like one of
tub.
those giant ones.
Right.
Take a long time to fill, no doubt.
But you were saying about Holly now being days away, 20 days from when we're recording of her due date.
Correct.
So she's going to pop at any moment. So now you had told me before the show, like, so her water can break at any time. And I'm like, yeah. So you're going to tell her at that point, like, get walking.
Right.
Right. Because you said you're going to walk to the hospital. Is that what's going to happen?
That is still what she wants to do. But I mean, plans could change, of course. Now the question is, I mentioned it
Get
could.
to walking, woman.
If we're recording the show, do I tell her, hey, you got to wait? I get the call and I say, sorry, babe, but the boys need me.
We're talking about the Concord beta. You're going to have to wait. Chris Collin, Dustin Furman's going to have to wait.
Wait, so
what a great time for you to have a child when there's just nothing to do and nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
Can I ask, is the reason for walking to the hospital, maybe we talked about this in one of the previous episodes, so that she can tell the kid when it's old enough that, like, listen, I walked to the hospital to give birth to you, just to have something over it.
Right.
Is that like
classic parent move?
I think that's definitely valuable, ammunition to consider. I think that she just thinks it'd be really funny. Because we're really not, we're not far.
The hospital for the bit is wild.
Yeah. So, and they say that once your water breaks or you're starting to go into labor, you should really not wait as long as possible. But it's like you're gonna be waiting. Would you rather wait at home or in a hospital? So I don't know. We'll see if she's able.
You should get a gurney and roll her down the street in it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then when they get there, it's like NASCAR almost. You get there and then they start hooking up all the shit.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think that could be
They're ready to
good.
go. They're changing the wheels out.
Yeah.
Putting on the indoor wheels.
I think
The indoor gurney wheels.
I'm thinking like a slide into, like a power slide, like a Mario Kart slide in a drift, some might say.
There's going to be a little lubricant, with the water breaking. So
yeah, absolutely. What is going on with that water? Why do we even call it water? What is it? I don't want to know. Personally,
I don't know.
I'm going to find out what it is.
I'm not even entirely sure what it means for your water to. I mean, like I know the term and all of that, but yeah, like the biological reality of what that is and what's going on there. No, I don't have any idea. Isn't there a thing that women do sometimes where they eat the placenta?
Yes. Okay, we weren't looking into this because we wanted to do it, but we were curious. Some women, what they do is they get it. They have an artisan chef cut it up into little capsules that you then just swallow and eat it over time.
Is that supposed to? I don't. Is that supposed to happen, or is that like I don't.
To be honest, Chris,
understand.
I don't know. I think it's some pseudoscience shit about I don't know the hormones or whatever.
I'm going to say something very controversial here.
Please,
okay,
please.
2 words. White women.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's the thing.
No one else is eating their placenta.
No. And
I'll guarantee you that.
If Holly wanted to eat it, I would. She's not taking it via pills. If she insisted, I'm like, I'm grilling it
on the
grill. You got to do it some other way. If you're gonna eat it, there's no easy way out. No pills, whatever. You just got to eat it. So
yeah, we're smoking up some placenta in the back.
Yeah, Micah can help me out.
No big deal.
Yeah, put it on the spit.
Jesus Christ.
The placenta, not the baby.
Well,
no, of course. I think it's weird how little I know enough about human biology, but like that water breaking thing is something that's kind of been a mystery to me. Only because I don't think I've ever like. It's right on the cusp of the amount of stuff that I care enough to ask about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, it doesn't, whether I know what it is or not, it happens. So like, I mean, it's clearly not a big deal if it happens to everybody. So it's not like an anomaly that I have to be concerned about. So it's like, whatever. But I remember seeing a video of a baby that was born and it was still in like this like membrane kind of egg.
Yeah.
And then they had to like pop it manually. And then you see it like spring to life, stressed out and panicked, which is like so sadly emblematic.
Yeah,
and
should have left him in.
The doctors stand around and they say, "Don't help it. It needs to work up its strength and get out of it itself."
Yeah, it's so I think maybe like the water breaking is maybe that membrane popping,
right?
Maybe,
right.
Or at least that would be my assumption. I have no idea. I'm talking out of my ass, but
I'm
like,
right with you,
seems
Chris.
to make sense.
I'm with you though, where I know just enough. I don't need to know anymore, and I don't care. And I want to be really specific. No one write in about it.
Oh yeah.
No one write in.
Don't do it.
You're out of here.
Don't do it. Well, this is very exciting. I mean, it could happen at any time. This might be any of these episodes might be your last episode before you take your leave. Mm-hmm. And what we all realize too is that will be the last episode of the show you're ever on because people are going to like the show better when you're gone.
Yep.
And then and that's going to be it. So how do you feel? It's a pretty exciting time for you.
Pretty exciting time. Yeah. I don't know. I get some freedom. I mean, I'll just be in the doldrums of editing at that point. And then really, what do I have left? So maybe then I will be depressed like you guys. But then you can't bring me back then at that point because that might remove the depression that
You're going to have postpartum depression?
I don't know.
Can men get postpartum depression?
What?
Can men get postpartum depression?
I would imagine so. I'm sure that there's an element of like you haven't slept in a week and this screaming thing won't stop crying and you feel like you've lost your life, that I would imagine there's a postpartum depression for men.
Yeah, your life is going to be forever changed after this.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
I feel the thing about it though is if it's something you want, then you're already like half of the way there of moving into the new life. And then you have 9 months to kind of mentally wire your brain. Not that I'm going to be totally ready for it, but it will be different. So I'm excited though. It'll be good.
Well, it will be good. Little Chris Collin, Dustin Furman. Birth sponsored by Tractor Supply. Very, very fun.
Dude, side note for you guys, I wanted to tell you. Big things happening in Butler County this weekend. Trump rally at the Butler Farm Showgrounds.
Wow, are you going to go?
No. Dude, apparently they're expecting tens of thousands of people as far as the pre-registers. This place is not set up for it. It's going to be they're going to have to shut down like all these roads around. It's going to be pure chaos here in Butler. And this Butler Farm Showgrounds, I've been there practically every year my whole life to go to the farm show. It's like a little dinky thing, but now, the big D is going to be there. The big Don. And
Big Don, yeah. It's funny. He was just in Virginia. He was in Virginia the day after the debate, but not in my area. I would, if I had access and it was like really close, I would definitely go. I feel like that's something like I would definitely want to see in person because it seems so interesting just from an anthropological point of view. Agree or disagree? I do feel like a lot of people, I've known a couple of people that don't agree with him that have gone just out of curiosity. And it's like,
Dude, I went to one.
It seems like it would be funny, like what kind of crazy shit's going to happen?
I went to one in Pasadena I think 2 years ago or something. I can't remember exactly when it was.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I went to go shoot a video. I wanted to interview some of the people, but like the audio got completely fucked and it was just completely unusable. It was a real shame because I have a lot of good footage of people like ranting, but like it's completely useless. I was so sad that I had to scrap that video, but it's a fascinating group of people.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he'll be born, your child, he or she. I don't think you've confirmed the gender actually. He. Oh, you did confirm it. Okay. Yeah. I was like, I'm speculating. He, right. But not we. And we don't know the name, but we do know the name because it's Chris Collin, Dustin Furman. But maybe he'll be born the same day. And in fact, the same time that Donald Trump is speaking in Butler. What will that? You'll have to change your whole name plan and everything because he's going to have to be named something like Barron Trump Jr. or something.
Yeah.
Furman.
Holly's dad was, because it's the talk of the town right now that there's going to be tens of thousands of people invading this very small space.
Can be good for business.
Yeah, it'll be.
Not our business, but other businesses.
But Holly's dad was like, "Oh, you can go." you could go to the Trump rally 9 months pregnant. And it was like, here's the thing. I'm with you guys. If the circumstances were different, I would totally want to go. Just, of course, for the sightseeing aspect of it all. But number one, I think it's going to be, I don't even know if you can get in. It's going to be the most insane chaos.
You have to be there early and shit. And like,
yeah.
And then
you're competing with people who are like religiously attached to this person.
Like that want to be there for the political reasons, not for the curiosity.
Right.
And that was what was so funny when Biden gave the interview with George Stephanopoulos, and he said, like, does anyone draw crowds like me or whatever? And George was like, are you kidding? Like, he was basically like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's like the one thing the other guy does better. It's I would love to see that, but I doubt I ever will at this point.
Yeah. I'm going to be hanging out with a friend. It's his birthday. So we're going to stay far away from that entire side of town.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Imagine missing your son's birth because you're stuck in traffic
at a Trump
because you have to go to a Trump rally. So damn funny.
If Holly's there, maybe Trump could deliver the baby.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, what if Trump made eye contact with you guys and saw a heavily pregnant woman? What would he say?
Well, I told Holly, imagine the picture of him and doing the thumb thing, like with Holly, like the thumb in front of her pregnant belly. I mean, that would be an all-time picture.
Interesting times we live in.
That could end up having medallion effects, though. That's like one of those things you don't want to you don't want to trifle with that stuff.
Yeah. True.
Keep it simple.
All right. Welcome to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. Recording from these United States. We're glad to be here with you today. Pre-Civil War II.
Yeah.
Early ad-free access to all of our shows, including Sacred Symbols and Sacred Symbols Plus on patreon.com/lastdaymedia. Couldn't do it without you. These are slow times. It's funny, man, because we're down, like, I don't really know what to make of all of this stuff. We're down like from our high, maybe 400 patrons or something, which is, whatever. It's slow and people have different priorities, but the income we're making is flat. Like, I don't even know like what the stats are telling me anymore. I like read them and I'm like, I don't know. Like, we're just doing the best we can. So we appreciate your support over there on patreon.com/lastdaymedia. Sacred Symbols Plus, of course, going live each and every week. And we're actually going to be putting a second, this is kind of confusing, and I'll be writing about this soon on Patreon to post it for everyone. But Knockback's going to go into a little bit of a freezing coma. We're not canceling it. It's just that we just don't have time with Dagan's schedule and all that to do it right. So every other week there will be 2 episodes of Sacred Symbols Plus, and then 1, and then 2, and then 1 until we figure out what we're going to do from there. And I have some new ideas that I want to kind of work in as well. So you can look forward to episodes coming forward we have one about Retro Game Store, right? From that's going to happen, Dustin?
Yes, that will happen. I don't know because we have other stuff planned for when it will release, but it's getting recorded soon.
We have an episode of Sacred Cross-Defining Duke for the first time in a few months that we're going to record next week as well. So look forward to that. And people, I know you guys want more of that, and we want to do more of it too. It is somewhat difficult to get all 5 of us on the same page outside of the days that we're already slotted to record things. So Mike is doing the best she can do there. I'm going to be doing a lot more Moriarty Cross Jaffe because people really like those maybe once a month or more at this point. We'll probably be doing them. So a new episode of that just went live. The Erd Tree. What did I call it last week? I called it something like the Legacy of the Erd Tree or something like that.
Yeah. I can't remember what it was.
The Fall of the Erd Tree or something.
Oh, it was it? I think it was like Rise of the Ronin.
That's what it was. Rise of the Erd Tree. So that went live, and you guys can look forward to a conversation about that. Chris did an episode all about the final shape with Cog, and you guys can check that out. We did an entire episode surrounding Castlevania. Some cool things coming up. There are a few people I want to talk to out there. I was just talking to my old friend Vincent Janito from IGN. He doesn't work there anymore, but he's now he does like mock reviews and stuff like that, and fighting game expert. And we've had him on a few times. I'd like to have him back as well to talk about some of the new things that are going on out there. So please support us over there, patreon.com/lastdaymedia. Merch, lastdaymedia.store, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, etc. Keep Micah busy since she sends you everything from her own hands. Joshua Poitras wrote in on Patreon. And remember, one of the perks over on Patreon is using the thread in the news feed each and every week to submit your inquiries. He says, hey, CDC, last week, my friend and I went to Anime Expo and wore Sacred Symbols merch all 4 days we attended. Not once did anyone comment on the shirts or give any sort of acknowledgement It would appear that weebs and sacred symbols don't seem to have much overlap, at least in one of the more heavy weeb settings. Is this a good or a bad thing? It's a thing. I don't know. Maybe someone recognized it. First of all, we're not a very, like, all, in the grand scheme of things, we're not really that relevant in the real world. I'm not saying Anime Expo is the real world, but nonetheless. Now, I do contend that there probably is a substantial overlap between weebs and sacred symbols audience, so I don't know that I believe that at all. In fact, Dustin's a huge weeb, and I would consider myself a closeted weeb in some sense, or what I would consider more of a selective weeb, where I'm not really into anime, but I'm very into anime games, as an example. But maybe people recognize, first of all, you're at Anime Expo. None of you know how to talk to each other anyway, right? Let's be honest. None of you have ever spoken a real word to another person in the entire life. The only way you correspond is through Patreon messages like the one you sent us. So don't be too surprised, Joshua, that no one recognized your shirt. And we can't win them all. But I bet you someone recognized it and didn't say anything. And we do appreciate your support. Leave us nice reviews on podcast services. You can follow us on YouTube. Leave a comment there. Dustin reads them, I think. So he'll let you know what you think. We're playing a show in San Diego. Sacred Symbols Cross-Defining Duke. A quiz show for the ages. September 6th, it's a Friday. In San Diego, go to bit.ly, bit.ly/Sacred Dukes, SACREDDUKES, for tickets. Please join us. We've sold about, I was talking to Ben today earlier, we sold about 250 tickets so far, so pretty good. We have a little less than 2 months, so let's pick it up because we can fit many more into the venue. Please come out and support us if you're in Southern California or in places close to that, or if you want to go to San Diego and visit and see us while you're there. Beautiful city. So that's bit.ly/Sacred Dukes. And by the way, I realized the URL was broken. Ben made the URL with a capital S and a capital D. And a bit.ly apparently is in the internet of the 1990s, where I understand in the alphanumeric URLs that are like millions of characters long, and that I understand that being, cap sensitive, but really that's not a thing anymore. So he made that not knowing. So if you tried to use bit.ly/Sacred Dukes, it might not have worked for you. So go check that out, please. We appreciate it. Let's get into some inquiries, topics of discussion. Slower week this week, but I'm sure we'll still go 7 or 8 hours. And I put, you guys had some good write-ins this week. Sometimes you're a little flat, I get it. Sometimes I am too. But you guys had a lot of good ones this week.
Sacred Symbols is sponsored by BetterHelp, the easy, affordable, and convenient way to seek the therapy you may need. Learn more now at betterhelp.com/symbols and see how online therapy can help you. So I'm a full-on believer in mental health care and therapy. I see someone in my own life to work through my own problems after all. But I'm also fully aware of how fortunate my situation is. I work for myself, I have health insurance, I have a flexible schedule, I have free time, I have transportation, and on and on. In other words, I have all of the tools to make in-person sessions happen. But I know that not everyone is so lucky, so unencumbered by the many realities of normal life. And that stops a lot of people from talking to a therapist. It can be inconvenient, expensive, and completely out of reach depending on who you are, where you are, and what you do. I don't find this particularly fair, though, because knowing what therapy has done for me throughout my nearly 4 decades on this earth, I likewise know that it can help pretty much everyone listening to this too. And this is where my friends at BetterHelp come into play. With BetterHelp, access to a licensed therapist becomes so much easier. All sessions are conducted via audio, video, or even just over text. It's much more affordable than traditional in-person therapy, and you can work your sessions entirely around your schedule. No driving, no Uber, no train or bus required. Just you, your device, your therapist on the other end, and hopefully a lot of chatter about what's on your mind and in your heart. Listen, I get not feeling great. I'm often down about things too. But it's important that once you identify why you may be sad or anxious or whatever, that you take the first step to do something about your condition. Because only you can take that first step. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire and you'll get matched with a therapist soon thereafter. And hey, therapy is personal. So if you don't like your match, you can get another therapist without delay. Whether you're having issues in a relationship, trouble at work, or whatever else you can possibly think of, BetterHelp is here to, help you out. My friends, it's time to stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/symbols today. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS to get 10% off your first month of sessions. Again, that's betterhelp.com/symbols for accessible, useful, and fully remote therapy that can help you right now.
Jay Duman 92 wrote in, or Dumman, Dummann. Hi guys. Just wondering if you can wish my wife, Emily, a happy birthday. She ends up listening to the show since I typically have it playing whenever we are driving, and she puts up with hours of conversations about video games, bread, and whatever other hijinks you all talk about. Thanks for all the content. Emily, happy birthday. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, another unfortunate what's the word? I mean, she's kind of forced to listen to it in a way.
She's captive.
Yeah.
It could be a captive listener, and maybe a form of torture for some women, I'm sure.
Come to the show in San Diego and cry in the bathroom.
Yeah.
As tradition
Yeah.
dictates.
She's probably one of these people who's like, man, I hate listening to this. It would really bother me if they acknowledged me in some way.
Yeah.
And now this is like some cruel, sick, twisted joke.
Right. She's like, I hate the show. I'm so glad that they don't know I exist.
Right, exactly.
I wonder, imagine a situation where there's a relationship already on the rocks, and he's playing Sacred again. And then Colin rips that monumentally loud fart. And then she's like, that's it. I can't take it. And then she leaves and then comes back with divorce papers. And that's like the fart that did it.
We are responsible for, as I understand, 2 divorces at this point.
Yeah.
So
We're responsible. Audio, dude. Oh, speaking, I didn't mention this. There's somebody tagged me, Derek and Sweeney in a video because like our podcast was playing in the background of a car crash compilation. Like
hold that thought.
diegetically.
Brandon M. wrote in and said, hey, Sacred Slits, recently Chris shared on Twitter that an episode of Snark Tank was playing in the background of a car crash compilation. My question is, what do you think the most heinous or ridiculous act ever committed while an episode of Sacred Symbols was playing? Keep on keeping on. Dude, I thought that was so... I'm so glad you brought that up. That's so funny. So yeah, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. I just didn't want to...
No.
Good.
Yeah, I think I was reading the document. I don't think I saw this in it last time I was reading it. But like, dude, I lost my mind because we talk about that all the time here on this show about like whether or not our show is in the background or like whether people have died listening to us or like careened off a bridge while our show is playing and we're the last thing that people hear. So like seeing our audio playing in the real world while a truck was spinning out behind this guy was mega surreal. Probably the most honored I've ever felt.
Right. I can totally imagine that. I was jealous, I think that's so funny.
Great.
And so weird that I had to bring that. I'm so glad you brought that up. And Brandon, thank you for writing in about that as well. He says most ridiculous or heinous act committed while an episode of Sacred Symbols was playing. I can only imagine. But I'd like to think people have sex to our show sometimes, probably. Not intentionally, probably often, but it's just there, just on somewhere in the house.
Yeah, like on the TV in the living room.
Right.
Like a Netflix and chill situation.
Yeah.
But with Sacred.
That's so unfortunate. That's such an unfortunate thing to imagine. Do you think people are gooning to the show is the thing? That's another thing because it's a long show.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an easy
Plenty
guess.
of time.
Yeah. It just seems like, as I understand it, just by reading the internet, it seems like everyone's just gooning.
Yeah.
So
doesn't fucking stop.
And you can edge to our show as well. 4 or 5 hours. I mean, you can have your hands full, literally. Brandon, thank you for writing in. That's so awesome. The car crash compilations are interesting. I don't often watch them because it's like when I watch my fight videos. Every once in a while, you watch one of these things and you're like, "Oh, that guy died." And the car, and I'm not so into snuff shit like that. So the car crash stuff, it's like you see some things and some crazy things, people getting T-boned or whatever. But then every once in a while, you're like, "That dude definitely died." Like, there's just simply no way that you survived that. So.
There was. I'm happy at the very least. Like the video that we're tagged in is like one that was fairly. I mean, it is a crazy one, but it's also like mild. Like he's fine. Like everybody involved is like pretty okay, I would imagine.
Oh, good.
But because it was just like literally like a spin on the highway. Like I don't think there was any actual collision, but still, it was very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, the other day I followed this guy on Twitter. I'll actually look him up because I just followed him, so he should be at the top of my list. His name is Steve Inman, and he's like an MMA. It says he's an MMA commentator. He has 1.2 million followers, but he does this thing where he finds like fight videos or just crazy videos and then commentates over them, and they're so And but I saw he had one where this dude was like, I guess robbed some apartment and then tried to escape out of a balcony on like the 9th story and started climbing down and then just fell and died. And it's like, Jesus, like you just see that you're watching like your, 10 fight videos and then you see that and you're like, Jesus Christ, I didn't want to see that. I'm not trying to look at the Daniel Pearl beheading, I saw that too, unfortunately, but
people got to.
That was because I looked it up. Don't look that up. No. I've said this before though. This is a little serious, but I think it's important for everyone to ingest a little bit of real violence so you know that it's not fake. Like that kind of shit is like made me so devoutly pacifist and anti-war and anti-conflict. I like my fight videos because they're fucking hysterical. I don't want anyone to die, So, but if you see that kind of shit, like I looked it up in college, it's like, oh my God, dude, it's real life, I think it shocks you a little bit. It shocks the conscience. It's easy to send other people out over to die, but when you see it with your own eyes, no good.
No good.
Welcome to Sacred Symbols. Let's see what's next. Oh, this one made me laugh. Logan from Memory Card wrote in and said, Colin, I need answers. The other day I noticed Lockmort's name in the Patreon credits. I know recently on various shows you mentioned Lock just has neglected to invoice you for months. It's been more than probably a year at this point. Does this mean Lock is paying you to work for you? I know he's European, but man, keep it up. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I probably should just refund him his money at this point, right?
Yeah.
At the very least.
Well, I don't know about that.
I actually don't think I can do it further back than 3 months.
Yeah. Well, I saw this come up and I thought this is perfect timing because I was going to ask you if we can add him to our Patreon since he's going to be taking part of my job.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. I'm surprised we already didn't do that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he can remove himself from that and I'm not going to refund him his money. Let's be honest. He's European, so he's living off of the state.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really his money at all.
Never has been.
Logan, thank you for writing in. Lockmort, you must be secretly wealthy or something, which is great. That's awesome. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm real curious how much I owe you at this point. It's got to be pretty substantial.
It's definitely fucking obscene.
Well, I mean, like, think about it. How many edits has he done since the last time it's got to be, I don't know, dude. It's definitely 4 figures. Yeah. But again, converting it to euro, pay him like $10, be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think new Europeans listen to the show and they hear these things casually and they're like, damn, these guys fucking hate us, huh?
Well,
they don't understand the context.
I hope so.
Yeah. At what point is it not a joke? I mean,
yeah. I mean, was it ever a joke is really the question. John wrote in and said, hey gang, I just wanted to point out during introductory questions, Colin usually says, let's stretch our legs. And last week slipped out, spread our legs. I listened multiple times and still cannot tell if it was intentional or not. I didn't go back and listen. It wasn't intentional. I believe you.
I recall this.
Oh, no one said it. I mean, that's funny. That's funny.
I think I made a trademark dust and face, but they are a little bit more reserved now out of fear.
Yeah, you're scared now. But that's where the faces belong because you're making faces where they don't belong. You're diluting it.
Yeah,
that's what you don't appreciate. You're diluting the whole situation.
When I have concentration looking something up, man, that's not the right moment for a face.
When Dustin's reading something on Google, he's looking at it like he's splitting the atom.
I can't fucking see.
Yeah. Like he's in the fucking Manhattan Project.
Fucking ridiculous.
Now,
I didn't notice that you said that, to be honest with you. Like, I did not notice or catch that.
I didn't either.
At all.
Now, is it where I guess we're all spread? It would be spreading our legs together. Is that what's on the mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's the point, really?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't even want to ask the question. Never mind.
Yeah. This is a terrible image, but I imagine for everybody gooning to the show, as we just already established, this is a pretty good one.
Dude, edge streak broken.
Yeah, you can't edge to this. You just
timestamp that. Timestamp that.
Do not come.
Do not come.
Oh man.
Have you ever seen the? I'm going to make this edit one day. But do you know the televangelist video from? It must be from the 90s. Of there's like a white guy, and he's talking about the word come, but COME, and they cut it up so it's like you've got to come. And I said, come. And it's like just him saying it over and over again. I want to splice that together with the Kamala, Donald Trump, like, do not come. Do not come. I'm gonna come. You can get that even a little bit longer by putting some of that guy's things in there too, and making a little like where Kamala's because she says it twice. So you cut one of them out, and you can kind of elongate it twice as long and make a nice little come video, which will be good for the gooners out there.
Yeah.
That's really who we're trying to service.
If not them, then who?
Certainly.
There's another video too of Joe Biden like turning around to the microphone, going like, "I'm going to come in the AV room."
Oh yeah,
or something like that.
Yes, I saw that.
So there's a lot. I don't know what the hell's going on in Washington, but like it's there's something very bizarre going on.
It's so good, dude. It's so good. Like just whatever's going on is so funny. Like this is total fiddling while Rome burns situation, and just fixated on the craziest shit. And the stuff Trump says too at his rallies, like that's just being ignored now because there's no space because of what's going on with Biden or whatever. It's so fun. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? It's so unserious that you have to just laugh at it or you'll cry. Right?
Certainly.
Yep.
Maybe not. Maybe you won't cry. I don't know. Chris wrote in and said, "Hey, pussy, stop talking about the heat. You are adjacent to northern states. That is all, pussy. You are more masculine, listener, Chris."
The hell's going on?
I don't know.
The hostility. Also, who's he talking to?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think he's talking to me, or like it must be me because I'm the only one in a southern state, but I'm in the most northern of the southern states. So he must be talking about me. You know, the European mind can't comprehend that there's an inherent knowledge of what is the South and what is the North. And on those border states, he must be talking about me because Dustin's in a border state too, but in the North, you know?
Yeah.
So
the good side.
That's right.
The not
actually,
racist
I guess,
side.
I mean, what's interesting is that you were a border state, but then West Virginia seceded from Virginia during the war and you became not a border state anymore. Right?
I don't know. I don't have a fucking idea.
So put that in your fucking pipe. Chris, thank you for writing in. Keanu.
Oh, God.
This one's bad. Keanu Reeve wrote in and said, "Slit fellows, I've just started dating a girl who calls chicken fingers chingers. Please help me decide whether this is something I can possibly let slide. It's too close."
Yeah, what'd you say, punk ass? You know, it's that kind of moment.
There's even if you sharpen that G a little bit, where it's like, "Oh, chingers."
Oh, that's worse.
It's what you have to, Keanu.
So
you have
much
to understand.
worse.
You have to understand. You're dancing on very, very thin ice with this. Like you cannot allow this to continue. Like I'm not saying you have to like throw this girl to the curb or like break up with her or anything, but like you have to sit her down,
right,
and really explain to her that you can't just go around saying words like that. Like I don't know how to explain it, but there's an etymology or like a flavor to words that even if they're not slurs, they might as well be. Mm-hmm. And you just gotta you gotta be careful. Unless you're in like Maine or something.
Right. Yeah, you'll get away with it.
Where no one's, it's all the same person, like copy pasted a million times. Like one of those old open world games from the 2000s where there's only like 2 models for the
same rock in Halo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I saw that did you see that tweet where it was like the same rock like rotated?
Yeah. I think we talked about it a while ago on the show. I didn't notice when I was playing. And the same tree, I think too, right? I think is another one.
Yeah. I mean, it's brilliant. Like I literally have never noticed that in all my years. So it's really smart use of assets, but yeah, you just don't have a conversation about this, please.
Definitely don't say it with the hard G like Chris did, because now you're getting, help this girl is what Chris is saying.
Yeah,
help her.
Yeah, sit her down.
Yeah,
and just communicate.
You can't call chicken fingers that. I don't even want to say it again.
There's already words like for us as podcasters. I think this was a few months ago. I said the word digger. And Chris gave me like a little bit of a look, and I'm like, but you just have to say that word. We don't need to create words that create glances, and that's
I remember that when
Glance-worthy.
the game. Do you guys remember? There used to be a game called that, and then I'm not even going to, Digger HD on PS3. And I remember when that came out, it's like it just doesn't sound right. Like we have to name it something. You have to name it something else. It's too close. It's too close.
Yeah, I don't know. Just err on the safe side. Although I will admit, just like doing the show with Sweeney and Derek is just completely like every single time I hear anything even remotely adjacent, I just
are they watching you?
What'd you call me?
Yeah.
The other thing about the word chinger, like chingers,
that sounds
which is what the word is that it's actually two different slurs.
Right, exactly.
Put together,
like
which makes it even worse.
It's like a Go Tanks of slurs. It's like you gotta be really
they
careful.
Did the fusion ha on that one.
Please talk to this one. Please communicate.
Keanu. You got it. Because have you seen? Mike and I were talking about this. Did I bring this up on the show that we've observed, and she was talking to me about, like, people just use the term raw dog now.
Right.
Like, I think we were talking about this, and it's like that. It's how we influence people to say things, and like, you don't buy the cow when you get the milk for free in a meeting, and some other weird shit. I've also noticed over time the blowing your load became a thing people just started saying as well. And I'm like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't think we can. I don't know if we can raw dog flights.
Well, that's an interesting example though, because blowing your load is such a common saying that I almost genuinely, when people say it, I kind of actually don't think about the sexual connotation at all, because it is so commonplace and in so many places that, like, they wouldn't be talking sexually, that it by virtue of its use in non-sexual contexts and non-sexual spaces at the volume that it is, it kind of like mutes the original connotation in some way. So I wonder at what point in the future will raw dogging lose that connotation, because it will happen. Not for us, because we've existed for too long with it, but like there's definitely going to be like a cartoon, like in like for kids in like I don't know 2030 something, right? Where like they talk about raw dogging something, and it's not a problem at all. Because I'm pretty sure I've heard blowing your load like in like a PG context before.
Well, that's
which is like weird, because it's like some poor innocent yet unborn child, like Chris Collin, Dustin Furman, is going to look up the etymology of these things one day when they're long removed and be like, "Holy shit, that's perverse."
You think that's perverse?
I mean, what about it?
You think future kids? What happened?
What about saying it sucks? I mean, anyone can say that now, but that's also
sucks. That's true. Like, where did
sucks dick? That sucks dick.
Yeah, sucks etymology.
I like Colin's faith in the future that like anybody born in the future will be curious enough to look up etymology at all. It's interesting.
Besides, this is all nonsense.
Yeah,
Colin's on a journey. Did it give you that Google AI thing that's fucking useless?
Oh no, I don't have that turn. I think I turned. It's on my phone.
Yeah.
Like Rush had a bump on his leg, and we were like, "Oh, what the fuck is this?" And then we realized it was from a shot that he had just gotten a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But we were worried about it. Mike was looking it up, and then I looked it up, and then Google Gemini was telling me all these things. Like, well, it could be fucking cancer. It could be. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
The Google AI. It's like, if your dog has a lump on its leg, it's probably on fire. And it's like, oh, great.
And then it shows you a picture of, is this what your dog looks like? And it's a black man, because that's all they can apparently render is
yeah.
What? What are you talking about?
You didn't see that? Huh? That's the whole controversy about Google Gemini.
Oh, is it?
They turned it off. It was a brief flash because people were like, draw me or generate an image of a Nazi at a car wash, and it would only draw Nazis as either blacks or Asians.
You didn't see this?
Yeah,
no, I didn't see
this
that.
is a real thing.
I know.
It's fucking hysterical, dude.
No, so I only know about all I know about the Google AI stuff is that's awesome. Is that it just gives you like, I saw these like you would Google something and then the Google AI would tell you something like, oh, is it normal to is bees in your shit normal? And it was like, yes, finding bees in your shit is absolutely normal. It's nothing to be alarmed about. Like things like that. Like it would just give you like just completely wrong
totally
information. Or like adding, I saw one that was like, oh, add non-toxic glue to your mac and cheese to add to the viscosity or something. And so that's what I'm thinking. I didn't know about this like rendering.
Oh, dude, I got to send you some of this stuff. It's so funny. Like people were having it render like George Washington, and it would render George Washington as a black man straight up. Like it would not render white people, which was the funniest thing ever. So they took the whole thing offline, and Jonathan Blow, who was on the show recently, was just it's funny this comes up because he was just tweeting about it, where he was saying Google Gemini was turned off because of these things like months ago, and they still haven't turned it back on, which means that this was like so deeply ingrained in whatever like language they were developing or whatever logic they were developing for this thing that they can't put it back. Like it was so it would be like draw the Nazi party, and it would be like all just Asians and Indians and black people. It was like, so what funny. The fuck?
I wonder if that's like to get ahead of because you know how there was this thing I remember. Oh, you remember how the Kinect couldn't read black people straight up?
Right.
Like it just,
I forgot about that. That's fucking ridiculous.
So maybe it's like, listen, we're gonna make this new technology. Let's just make sure it can handle this.
Like they overcompensated, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So let's figure out the rest of it later, because this part is going to bite us in the ass if it can't do this.
Dude, I can't believe you missed that, because that's fucking comedy gold.
Yeah, I totally maybe I don't know. I'm really how long ago was this?
Let's say spring, probably something like that.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how the fuck I missed that then.
Yeah, that's why I was like, just like it'll be like, create a tree, and it'll be like, an Indian man or something. It's not that, but that was the joke I was making. That it wasn't that literal.
I love that.
That puts the joke into a little bit of context for you.
That's awesome.
Whether it was funny or not is another thing entirely. All right, let's see here.
Oh, man.
Blue Moose wrote in and said, "Hey, super sacred studs. Question mostly directed at the married studs, Colin and Dustin. I'm getting married next Friday to the man of my dreams and looking for any sage advice you can give to a successful wedding and marriage. He's not really a gamer, but respects my gaming time. Well, I'm a big gamer dude. Love all the amazing content and stay sexy, my friends." I got to be honest, dude. Sounds like your husband's going to be a little bit different than you, which I think is great. I believe opposites do attract. And so that kind of stuff I think works sometimes. And generally speaking, I think a lot of people are different. But I found a lot of harmony in my gaming time for the first time in my life, really, by being with someone who actually also plays games. And I always thought that I didn't want that, but I think that it's actually allowed me to just fall deeper into the gaming well than I probably ever would have otherwise ever had. I play so much more now than I probably ever have in my life. Like really, maybe since I was a kid, when I would actually, really just play like all day. And so I don't know if that's healthy or not. And I think since you're a normal, I bring this up, Blue Moose, because I think since you're a normal person in the world, that having someone that's not a gamer will bring much needed balance to your life. And that you should actually embrace that middle ground, in my opinion. Of course, that's necessary for any harmonious marriage. But if you and your husband-to-be can meet in the middle somewhere and then split off to do your own things and then meet up again and so on and so forth, that's the harmonious, natural existence that I think every marriage wants to get into. Micah and I, we say to each other, we share one brain cell, because we are so two peas in a pod in some way that it's actually strange, and it's great in its own way, and I love it. But I've never experienced something like it before, and I don't know if we were not in this world professionally and officially in some sense, it would probably be pretty destructive towards our lives. So, so count your blessings. Dustin, do you have any advice?
I would just say, if you're gaming a lot, just be aware of, I don't know what your husband or your husband to be is into. But maybe just be careful you're not hogging too much screen time. Because I know that I'm always careful if I'm playing games a lot. Then it's like, oh, Holly can't either play one of her own games, or she can't watch her YouTube videos that she likes to watch or whatever. So even if, and the other thing too is just, I think this is just for people in general, is, and when you're close to someone in marriage, is that sometimes, at least for me with Holly, I can tell when she's being nice. That it's like, I've been playing games for a bit, and I'm like, "Are you good?" And then she's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." It's like, maybe I have been playing games a little too long. let's spend some time together. You know what I mean? So just learn the limits. You'll learn to live with one another if you don't already, and just err on the safe side, I would say.
I'm also a true believer in and this is going to be different for each person. And Mike and I even had to find like a happy medium in this as well. But like, I like just being with a person. Like, I don't need to be doing the same thing as them or like focused on the same thing but like just being next to them or being around their energy and being able to tell a joke or say something that you're listening to is interesting or show something. Like, I love that. And Micah and I are together in that regard always, like pretty much all of the time. But the gaming time, that's as far as screen time, it's important to know. Yeah, we have many screens in our house, but obviously the living room screen is where we want to be. I look at it kind of like Micah gets it basically all day. She can do whatever she wants down there. You know, she has work to do and things that, errands, and she's with the dogs and all that. But really, she can just until dinner, it's just kind of all hers. And then after dinner, I usually settle into the living room and usually play a game. And then she'll like switch over to the Switch or be on her phone or on her laptop. And if she wants to play something, we usually just split up and go to 2 different places. Like, she was playing The Order a week or 2 ago.
Nice.
And I'm like, I don't want to see that fucking trash. She'll bring that upstairs. No, I'm only kidding. She went upstairs and played that while I was playing whatever. So yeah, you got to find that happy medium. Chris, what's going on with you in relationships? Tell us all of your personal business on the show right now.
It's while you were talking, I was literally this is the thought that was going through my head the entire time that you were talking. It's like, I haven't seen a kite in a really long time. That's where my brain went.
Well, that's
for some
fair.
reason.
That's fair. I actually until recently hadn't seen a kite in a long time. Then some random kid was flying a kite in my neighborhood, and Mike and I were talking about it when we were walking the dogs. I'm like, who flies kites?
Are you serious? Like, you saw a kite recently?
Yeah, recently. Like, we live in a suburban neighborhood, as everyone knows, but then there are these like patches of open land and kind of like forested land where people bring their dogs and kind of just hang out, or, you can do whatever you want there. And someone was flying a kite there, and we had noted it because it's very similar to the fireworks conversation we have where I'm like, who the fuck flies kites?
Yeah. I
can see this being really fun 150 years ago. Totally. What the fuck else are you going to do? People were hitting sticks or, wooden circles with sticks, and it was the fucking most exciting thing you'd ever do in your life. So flying a kite would be like electrifying, but just go on your phone. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. As far as relationship stuff, I mean, I'm talking to a person.
Wonderful.
And so we'll see. I'm pretty happy right now. But
sounds serious.
It sounds serious.
Yeah. Well, apparently dating. As many of the audience knows, my best friend Brandon, he's currently single, ready to mingle. Hearing about dating in 2024, thank God that I'm sounds horrendous. So talking to someone is kind of serious now, from my understanding of modern dating.
Well, the thing is, like, I think there's an overstatement going on. If you're on apps and stuff, like, yeah, it's hell. But like, that's always, I don't know, apps. I never delved into apps at all. Like, the entire premise of dating apps to me felt weird, not wrong. I don't want to say like morally wrong or anything, but just like there's something about it that felt like too detached. I like to meet people organically, and I've pretty much met everybody that I've ever been in a relationship with organically, and I'm still on very, very good terms with most, if not all of them. So like, and I think it's for that reason, because it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to swipe right on some fucking app and let an algorithm match me with it. It's just, it's so robotic and weird. I don't know. And so, I mean, it's fine out there. You just have to, if you meet people organically, I still feel like it's about as hard or as easy or as cool or as stressful as it's always been. But that added level of like robotic curation is kind of weird, but you can choose to just not do that. Like, it's very, very easy to avoid, in fact, as far as I've noticed anyway.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm old, so like I didn't want to say I missed that era, because that shit was going on when I was younger too, but I was the same way. I always knew people like in person that I dated, and it's easier said than done because I'm married, thank God, and I'm in a good relationship, but it's like I really feel like I would probably rather be alone than ever subject myself to that marketplace of
Right.
It would just be so bad for my ego, whatever's left of it anyway.
You say that because you're out of it, though. You know what I mean? Like it's you don't have to deal with it. So of
right,
course,
exactly.
like,
That's why I somehow dodged it, which is good. I've honestly never been on those apps before, so I don't even know what it's like. Like even when people say like, oh, the only experience I have with anyone using Tinder is I was in Japan, and this was in I guess 2014, and one of the guys there was showing it to me in Japan as he was like trying to hook up with a Japanese girl, and that's the only time I even ever saw the app. Like, so I don't even really understand what anyone's talking about, you know?
Yeah.
But I digress. It's to each their own. I think if you're a woman, it's probably awesome, and if you're like a certain caliber of guy, it's probably awesome. But I'm neither a woman or a certain caliber of guy. So
I had Tinder for a while, but like I don't think I ever used it seriously. It was always I used it. This is probably fucking. This is probably a waste of. I probably shouldn't have done this, but like I literally just used it as like a confidence boost. Because I would like I would just swipe a bunch of time, and if I would get matched, I would be like, cool. But then I would never, because I didn't care to meet people through Tinder. It was just like, that's cool. It's nice to be complimented in that way, I guess.
Seems like an STD factory to me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to, you know, I don't know. There's always like a word to the wise, just generally, before you do any of that stuff, it behooves you to get tested. Just generally.
Oh,
or just like request that like somebody that you're seeing gets tested. I mean, it's just basic courtesy, honestly. I don't know why that's like a big deal.
I can't believe how people go into those things blind, like not knowing if a person has something or not, even if you're using protection, which you definitely should, but that's not going to necessarily save you from some of this stuff. It's just, it is like, oof. But protection. That can happen with someone you meet at a bar too, just as easily. So it's not like it's exclusive to those places. All right. Well, Blue Moose, Carpe Diem, my friend. Good luck. Mercury as 13 wrote in and said, greetings, Cubs, Colin, D-backs, Dustin, and Tampa Bay, Ray Gun. This has never happened to me before in any game, but recently my MLB The Show account was suspended for a week due to Sony San Diego discovering my online team name. The name in question, the Philadelphia Falacios. Now I need your assistance. Can you help me come up with another clever name? Thanks and keep up the awesome work. You guys are amazing. That's it. That is funny, man. Like, because fellatio, I think fellatio, the act is spelled with an F, right?
Yeah.
Filatio or something like that. So he spelled it like Philadelphia, Philatio. I mean, that's why does anyone care? Or I think fellatio is an FE, actually. FE.
Yeah, it's FE. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does it need a term like that though? Like why?
Yeah.
There's something about it. It's like it almost seems like a Harry Potter spell or something. Like why? Felicio. Like it's just a bizarrely sophisticated, elegant word for something. So
yeah, it's like, oh, fellatio. Oh, what's that mean? Sucking dick. You know,
sucking dick. I think. I think it's the French way to say it.
Oh my god! Another name. I don't know. Why can't? I don't know. I understand you want to keep things E or PG or whatever, but that's like a harmless, funny name. It's not what you're necessarily looking for, in my opinion, when you're looking for things that are truly offensive. But I understand they want to keep it clean.
I have an idea. What if you mix the word chicken and finger? Yes, it the Chingers.
The
perfect team name.
You'll get banned on PSN for 15 years for that.
15 years exactly to the day.
Well, I don't have it. I don't have a name suggestion for you, but I think that is a funny name.
That's good.
You should see some of the names of my uncle in my fantasy football league. It's bad in there. All right. Jason Lusky wrote in. Said, gentlemen, this message is specifically for Chris, but Colin and Dustin can definitely chime in. I would have sent Chris a private message, but he justifiably is hard to private message. Chris, would you be interested in selling your PSVR 2? A cash offer would be pretty boring, so I'm going right for the sweet spot. I have 2 general admission tickets to a sold-out Rise Against concert in November. The concert is at a new venue in Del Mar called The Sound. I know driving back to San Diego doesn't sound appealing, but it's Rise Against on a Friday night, November 22nd. Maybe make a day of heading down with one of your friends. Let me know if this sounds doable and we can work something out. I'm basically looking for a glorified Beat Saber machine for my daughters, and I don't want a Quest. Thanks. This man has made you an offer. This is like, what would this be, like Civilization?
Yeah, trade offer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tempting. The issue here, which is like, it's so funny because this is like of all the things and of all the places and of all the times, it is literally the least convenient because I can't remember exactly which day, but November 21st or November 23rd, I will be in San Diego for another concert, but I'm not going alone. So the issue really is, can I go to one concert one day and then go by myself to the next one? I don't know. I have to think about it. I have to run it by.
Wait. You're going with someone else to one show, right?
To one show,
and
the
then
day
why
before,
couldn't
the day
you
after.
and that person go to the second show together? Because it's 2 tickets.
It depends if they want to go. Like, that's kind of.
I see. I understand.
Like, I would have no idea. Maybe it's possible. I'll try and get in touch with you, individually and figure it out. But like, I have to run this by someone.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, hold on, Chris. This might be a bad offer. In terms of, I'm looking. Okay, I brought up because he said sold out. So I'm on StubHub. 2 tickets, standing room only, $150 each. So that's a $300 value. Your PSVR new is worth $550.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
And used probably $400. So now there are other tickets listed here for standing room only, $200. But you can currently get tickets for this for $150. I say bad deal, and for that reason, I'm
sweeten
out.
the pot.
Sweeten the pot, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know,
deal,
man. I don't know if look, man, I'm 30. I don't know if 2 concerts in 2 days. I'm already tired just thinking about having to drive down to San Diego for this. But at the same time, there is an argument to be made about, well, I'm in San Diego. Let me get my value's worth of this trip. I don't know. I have to think about it. I'm definitely not using my PSVR at all. It's sitting in my room closet, just sitting there. Maybe I might get the dongle just to see if I could like get some use out of it in some way, but I don't know. I have to think about it, Jason. I appreciate the offer though, but I got to ruminate.
We're facilitating deals. We're like Facebook Marketplace now.
Yeah, this is a more effective way. This is a more effective platform to sell your things than Facebook Marketplace. I can promise you that. Come here with all of your listings, and we'll negotiate them for you.
All right. Yeah, we want a 5% rip. That's all we want.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's get into the news. The inquiries here. And Jason, by the way, thank you for writing in on that. No more deals. This isn't Civilization. Okay. Smaller news items. This one just broke today. I don't think it's a good sign, personally. Noah Bucci wrote in, or Bucky. Bucky. I don't know. Says, howdy, Sacred Chads. The Concord beta will be available to anyone with a PlayStation Plus account this weekend. Does this mean pre-orders were so low that they needed to open it up to the wider public? Regardless, I'm glad they did because the game needs good word of mouth to revive it. So, to the point, thank you for writing in, by the way, Noah. To the point, Concord's beta early access is this weekend, as was already planned, July 12th through 14th, and then there's going to be another weekend, next weekend, July 18th to 21st. However, you guys might recall that this original weekend was for people that pre-ordered, and then people would get 5 codes to share with friends, or I guess 4 codes to have a full team of 5. And then today they just announced, no, it's going to be open to everyone with PlayStation Plus account. Not good. At least from a he asked, like, is this because pre-orders were low? Obviously. I mean,
yeah, this reeks of Dreams early access.
Right. That's right. What Dustin's referring to, people might remember, is that when Dreams was in early access, they were like, we're only going to sell a limited amount of copies, and then we're going to shut it off so we can keep it keep it within the realm of reason so we can figure things out. And then they never even reached that number. And so it was always on sale. And that wasn't what was supposed to happen, but it boded poorly for the for the game, and this doesn't bode well for Concord, although I think that Concord's only chance ever was to get people playing it and to get their hands on and with it and see if they enjoy it. And so I don't think this is necessarily bad for the game. It's just bad optically, but most people won't even notice probably that it wasn't always this way. I do feel bad for you if you pre-ordered it specifically to get in. That kind of sucks. A little bit of a bait and switch. But Concord, Dustin, you said you were going to play this, right? And the open beta, but I think you said you were going to wait until the next weekend. So you can play it this weekend before little Chris Collin, Dustin Furman comes, right?
I got it wasn't a trade offer, but I was given by a listener a PC beta code. So I will be able to check it out on the proper control scheme for first-person shooters, mouse and keyboard, of course. So I'll be playing it there. Maybe I'll check it out on PlayStation too. I mean, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Check it out on both spots. But
I wonder if you can use mouse and keyboard on the PS5 version. Probably.
I mean, I don't know. They have been doing a lot more of that, but
yeah, more games are integrating it. So
yeah, dude, I've always wanted like a setup to use mouse and keyboard at my couch, but they are so inelegant. Like you got to get some kind of board that basically sits on your lap and it's huge and be very annoying. But so yeah, I'm gonna check it out. I'm trying to go in. My expectations are obviously low, but I would love to be wrong. I'd love to hop in and have a great time and see what it's about, but we'll see. Cool.
Chris, are you going to check out I'm not checking this game out. Are you going to check this out?
Yeah. I mean, if it's this open, then sure. There's no real reason not to. I'm not super stoked about it. Like I feel like you guys are right. I feel like the idea, they definitely just need as many people in this thing as possible because it's a multiplayer beta and you need that information and you need other players. You need enough people that other people are going to match with. So it seems like they're just obviously not hitting numbers internally. They got to open it up a little bit. It doesn't say anything about the quality of the game because obviously nobody's played it yet. But it definitely speaks to a level of interest that people have, which is very evidently very minimal. So we'll see. I'll definitely check it out, but I'm not expecting a lot.
Yeah. Well, for people that are interested, here are the details that you'll need. Early access weekend the first one is July 12th through 14th. So the day this goes live on Patreon through that weekend. 4 maps: Free Water, Star Chamber, Water Hazard, and Shock Risk. 3 modes: Cargo Run, Clash Point, and Trophy Hunt. All the 16 characters in the core roster will be available. And then open beta weekend next weekend, July 18th through 21st, which again is a Friday through a Sunday. All the early access content, and plus they're adding 1 new map, Bone Mines, and 1 new mode in area control. So you'll be able to enjoy the game, or test it out. I don't know if you'll enjoy it or not. You'll be able to test it out pretty in depth. It is worth noting through our skepticism that those who went on with the hands-on with the game, I'm pretty sure are positive on the game. I mean, what I've read was that it's pretty good, and it's not a huge surprise. I mean, the people that made the game are very talented and come from a lot of really robust shooter studios that have made iconic shooters. But I want to go around the horn real quick and just put us on the spot. What do we think? I mean, is this game going to do well? I feel like the way I would answer it is it seems unlikely, but I don't know. You guys know much more about these genres and adjacent genres than me. So what do you guys think, Dustin?
I think I'll have a much clearer picture after this weekend, but based on right now, I would say this game will play well and people will enjoy it, but it's not, I just don't know if there's room for it. And I don't know if the overall aesthetics and the whole story focused multiplayer, I just don't know if people are into it. They're currently not into it based on the previews. So I feel like this might be like that EA live service game, the dodgeball one that Knockout City, that people are like, this game's fun. I love it. And then it just disappears because there wasn't enough players. I wonder if that'll be the case. That the gameplay certainly could be really, really fun, but I don't know. It might be a different scenario since people are paying for it instead of a free to play, but that actually might make it worse because people aren't going to be willing to buy in initially.
I don't think you can see it, Chris, in the visual aspects of the game. I was watching gameplay of it this morning just to kind of refresh myself on like what it even really was. I'm like, this looks fun. But again, I have no insight into like what people like about these games because they're just not for me at all. But there is important DNA in the game in terms of like Destiny veterans and Halo veterans. And I don't know, there's something there. What do you think?
I think it's possible. Like, I think, I mean, there's a gameplay snippet that I saw a couple weeks ago where the first couple, somebody sprinting with like some hand cannon or something, and it looks, at first glance, it looks like Destiny, and then it turns over to the rest of the map, which is, you know, artistically very much not Destiny. I don't know. I think there's a pretty high chance that this is a very good game that just doesn't really have room to exist. Really, I know people are kind of down on Overwatch right now, so maybe there's a chance that maybe there is an appetite that is not being satiated in some way for a team-based loot shooter kind of thing like this. Overwatch is a little bit stale. It's definitely fallen from grace. There are a lot of hero shooters, but in the style of Overwatch, there really kind of aren't. We really only had Lawbreakers around the same time as Overwatch, and what was that other one? Oh my god, Battleborn.
The gear one.
Yeah, that's the only one. Those are the only two that I can remember that were even similar, because while we do have a lot of other hero shooters, there are very, very specifically those other games like kind of molded into a hero shooter genre. So I think about like Rainbow Six Siege with their kind of hero shooter setup, and even modern Call of Duties with like their operators and stuff. Battlefield 2042 kind of had like a hero-esque kind of system as well. So hero shooters are very, very saturated, I think, but in the style of Overwatch, it's possible that this might strike at a good time. I just don't really know I just don't know how likely it is that there's room for another live service. I don't know how many lapsed Overwatch players are necessarily looking for a replacement. How many Overwatch players who are currently playing and kind of dissatisfied with Overwatch are willing to peel off. I don't know. It's kind of up in the air in this space, but the one thing that I'm sure of is that I don't really see a lot of conversation about this game, and it doesn't seem to be lighting the world on fire in any real way. Obviously, it's not out yet, and the beta isn't out yet, so we'll have a clearer picture after these next few weekends. But I don't know. I think Dustin's kind of spot on with his Knockout City reference there, because
it's a good reference.
Because that was a solid game. I really enjoyed that game, but there's only so much. I mean, you know, there's only so much time that people have, and so we'll see. I think it'll be solid though.
Yeah, I think your guys are right that it's a small chance. It's like it's a low chance that the game's going to be bad, but yeah, like you were saying, that doesn't always matter. I was looking up some of the games here that it would be competing with. So, like you said, Rainbow Six Siege and Overwatch 2. But they have Apex Legends listed as one, Valorant, which is huge.
Yeah, Valorant's massive. Yeah.
So there is a appetite, and I'll be curious to know. I think if the game does poorly, it bodes really poorly for Fair Games, simply because it won't really matter if that game's good either. And people are already down on that game, having seen nothing but a cinematic, while people were somewhat optimistic about Concord until they saw what it really was, and then became instantly really negative. Like it's unclear if it matters or not. People always bring up the Call of Duty examples of how like those games just get bombed on YouTube, and then they sell 25 million copies or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it's totally true. It doesn't really matter, but I don't know that I've ever seen a PlayStation first party game get received like that. Like, what would be like a game that Last of Us Part 2 was the most controversial thing that they probably had ever done in that space. It's just interesting. Like, it's hard for me to believe that they're going to be able to turn that around unless that's just a totally disingenuous look at it. Because people do say, and I want to contend that this isn't true, they're like, well, no one gave a fuck. You know, everyone was down on Helldivers 2 or whatever too. And I'm like, no, they weren't. No one cared. And that's different.
Yeah, there
wasn't really a formed opinion on it. But there was an immediate opinion on this. And the immediate opinion was bad. So are there like many examples of games that have broken out of that? To me, the game that comes to mind, and they're different, but just is kill the Justice League, where it's like that game. And Jaffe always defends it because he's like, it's a lot better than people say it is. And I'm like, I somewhat believe you, but the narrative on that was written the second everyone saw gameplay. There was no getting out of it. And is that the same thing here? I don't know.
It's a bit of a different situation, but I mean, Doom 2016 kind of had that really negative initial kind of response, and then turned out to be great. But the difference there is obviously a lot of opinions were formed on not only the fact that like Doom had been gone for a long time and it looked kind of okay, but it just kind of felt like nostalgia grabbing. It felt like, oh, going back into the well because nothing else is working. And then the multiplayer beta came out and that was like not good. But the single player experience of that game was not the multiplayer experience at all. Like not even by like a, like it's they're so separate. It's crazy. And Concord doesn't really have that going. Really, like what you're going to play in the beta is what the game is going to be. Like there's simply just not enough time between launch and now for this to be a true beta in the sense of like, okay, you're really tweaking things to really change the way this feels to play. Like it's just not it's not going to shift that drastically. At least after people play it. You know, before people play it, it's kind of a crapshoot. Like, who the fuck cares, really? Like, nobody's opinion on Concord really matters at all right now because no one's really played it except for some of the previews. So we'll see. I think based on the talent behind that studio, in that studio, and working on that game, I think it'll be like a really solid FPS. I think it'll be decent to play. It's just a matter of like how sticky it is and what the appetite is, and that's kind of like really, really unpredictable and very, very volatile. And you know, best of luck. You know, I'm hoping to enjoy it. You know, I'm not like excited to like hate it or anything.
Yeah, I should be clear too. I want Sony to do well in these spaces because I think it's necessary for the brand to do well, to find success here. It's funny, Jaffe and I were talking about Helldivers though when we did Moriarty Cross Jaffe on Patreon, and we were saying, or I was saying, I'm getting a little annoyed with the Helldivers 2 conversation where people are like, it's falling off. I'm like, it might be. I doubt it's going to fall off completely. I think they can probably revive it with a few different moves, but it's definitely, it's like I said early on, although I was vacillating later, was like, it's probably not the game they're really looking for because I don't think it's sticky the way it needs to be. But although a lot of people really enjoy it, but I was like, dude, the game will probably all told have sold something like 15 million copies. Like that's a slam dunk success. They just, you can't leave good enough alone. It's like, it's always got to be more. It's always got to be more. It's always got to be more. And I'm like, that's such a huge success story. If they could replicate that once or twice a year and have a zeitgeist multiplayer game that then has like an ambient level of players for some years after that, I think they would be thrilled. And if Concord could get anywhere near that, which it's not going to get the Helldivers numbers, there's just no way. That would be hard, almost impossible for me to believe unless the right people start playing it and talking about it and it gets picked up. But it's like that number is just so crazy. But maybe they can get something that's longer lasting and more ambient at a lower level and maintain that with an interested fan base. And I do like the structure that they're approaching of the $40 game with these particular online games. I think it tells us that Fair Games will also be that price. We'll see when it comes out. And then you get this really robust package where with Helldivers, for instance, though it's easy enough to spend money on optional things, you really don't have to. I played the game for 50 or 60 hours without spending a dime. So yeah. It's a good value if that's what you're looking for, and if you find it's like, so we'll see. But I'm skeptical just because I don't know that many games turn it around like that. And when you bring up Doom, which is a great example, it's Doom's campaign, like you said, exactly. that turned it around. People forgot there was even a multiplayer aspect. No one talks about it. It's irrelevant to what makes Doom so great. There's nothing to fall back on here. So I also do dig though their approach to storytelling, where it's going to be like a weekly kind of rollout of a little cinematic or an episode of some sort. Pretty neat idea. I don't know if people give a shit, but I think you have to try to do interesting things like that. And so it goes without saying, I think that's pretty cool. So our best to Firewalk in the Concord. I'm going to be very interested to see what people think of it. I'm sure it'll be all a buzz this coming weekend. Okay. My friends, there's something interesting on PlayStation Stars, though I can't verify because I still can't sign into it. The Snack Squatch wrote in and said, hey guys, what do you make of PlayStation Stars posting Bloodborne, the Old Hunters DLC, as a redeemable game with points for PS5? Is this another dick tease, or are we finally going to get what we all want? Thanks for all that you do. So this comes from Reddit, and I believe it. If you go, it looks like it's from a Spanish version. Oh no, I'm sorry, this is a French version. Dumb. A French, so maybe either a French Canadian or a French, European French version of the store, in which it shows Bloodborne: The Old Hunters, so the DLC for Bloodborne, as a redeemable PS5 game for 5,000 points. It's next to Stellar Blade on one side here for 17,500 points. I don't know if this has been like fixed, because so here I'll show you on my humble iPhone SE that when I click on it, it still says, I still get an error message, and it says PlayStation Stars will be returning soon in phased regional rollout. So you have the same thing.
Same thing.
So I can't verify whether this would show up for me here, but I would imagine that this is an accident. A lot of people are circulating this, not noting that it's the DLC as well, and just saying it's the straight up game. And I'm like, I think it actually matters in some sense that it's the DLC. It seems like an overt accident. But maybe not. It would be kind of funny if things all leaked like that, if the existence of this thing leaked like this, but it just seems unlikely. We reported on PlayStation Stars going down a few weeks ago, and I had assumed that it was, because remember we reported that it was down, and then we reported, I think a week or two later, that they're going to start rolling it back out regionally. And so I was like, okay, I guess this story is over. And now we're, I think, 2 weeks past that, and it's still not available in the States. So something's wrong with this thing. I don't know what could possibly be so deeply wrong with PlayStation Stars, but like, did someone figure out a way to like manipulate the shit out of it or something? Like, there's something weird. It doesn't make sense. It's a loyalty rewards program. What's so broken about it that you can't put it back up? Very strange. So can't confirm, but do you guys agree, Dustin? This is probably an accident.
I have no hope of this being any kind of actual leak. PlayStation Stars is so busted, we can't even access it right now. You think that it's clearly just like some kind of listing error in my mind. It's just like someone, when they put a thing on the toggle, you would imagine it would automatically populate where the platform is to say whatever type of game it's from. But knowing PSN, it doesn't. And whoever logged this in there said it wrong, or there's just some kind of bug. So if there was some kind of PS5 version, there would be numerous other signs, I think, such as like a rating, or I guess I don't know if you need a rating for a port to PS5, but yeah, this is nothing to me, unfortunately. But the Bloodborne copium for fans, they'll take anything at this point.
It continues.
It continues. So let the suffering continue. But today is not the day for Bloodborne on PS5.
Yeah, there is a lot of just strenuous need and want for this. It's so crazy.
They've entered a state of gooning for Bloodborne.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. All right. Chris, you have anything you want to add? I imagine you agree.
Well, no, yeah, I don't imagine if this was ever going to leak, I don't think it would come from PlayStation Stars. Also, there's apparently like a couple of comments that I've looked at some forum posts about this, and some of them say like, yeah, it's a listing error because when you click it, like when you actually click on that thing, and again, I can't verify this because it's down for everybody, but apparently a lot of people are saying like when you click it, it says PS4 on it. So like it's largely probably just like a display error, if anything.
I always love thinking about these accidents of like someone just clicking the wrong thing and then going about their business, not realizing that it created like this incredible maelstrom online of things. I think about that with when trophies get published by accident, and they're for things that are not announced, or things get, and I'm like, oh my God, like someone just did that, not realizing like how easy it is to scrape that data, and that there are people so obsessed with the shit that they scrape the data like every hour. So like, you're not going to get away with it,
Yeah.
Like when you go on PSN profiles or Exophase or one of these things, they scrape the PSN multiple times a day. Like there's no room for error. Like if you publish that, you have to get it off the server ASAP. And I'm not even entirely sure it's possible to do that once it's live, because there are, as everyone knows, dud PSN lists that exist in perpetuity that no one has trophies for because they're just there. One of them came back. Do you guys remember? I can't remember. Hardware Rivals, which was like a very European-centric PS2 game. And we talked about this a while ago, that it was like a kind of a big early online hit for PS2 and specifically in Europe. And then trophies started popping up for it. And it happened again, like more trophies, like DLC trophies popped up for it. It's like, what is going on with this game? It's so strange. And then there was like fake trophy lists that would pop up that they were using as tests before PS4 came out. Pretty interesting if you're a huge nerd like me. Okay. Few game announcements and other things that are worth noting. So over on Gamatsu, they reveal, and this has been talked about pretty extensively around the internet in the last couple of days, Arc System Works, the fighting studio, primarily fighting studio, has announced Double Dragon Revive for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and other consoles for 2025. It was revealed in Famitsu, the famous Japanese gaming magazine, and it says, quote, according to the magazine, the new game faithfully reproduces the thrill of old-school side-scrolling action games with updated controls and difficulty settings for the modern era and utilizing Arc System Works' fighting game development experience. Jimmy Lee, Billy Lee, Roper, Abobo, and more will appear in stylish 3D. I don't know if you guys are Double Dragon fans. You're a little young for Double Dragon, but obviously it existed when you were around, but its heyday was when I was just a little kid. But we loved these games on NES. The first one, of course, came out in 1987 in the arcade and was ported in a famous NES port in 1988 and was followed by a bunch of other games. And these are classic style beat 'em ups from Technos that I think is so Arc System acquired this along with all of the other, Kunio-kun games as they're called. So games like River City Ransom and Super Volleyball and all of that kind of stuff are all in the series as well, with those kind of very telltale little sprites, squat sprites with big heads. So Double Dragon is kind of the progenitor of all of this, and I'm pretty amped about this. I want to see what it is. Although Double Dragon has not been treated very well. Double Dragon 4 was bad. That came out on PS4 in 2017. And I don't really know if I have much hope, but we'll see how it all goes. So shout out to that, Double Dragon. Any interest in this? Did you either of you ever play the Brawlers Double Dragon games?
At some point, I played a tiny bit of the original, but that's one where you can like pick up weapons and stuff, right?
Right.
You can get like a pipe.
In the beginning of the first one, the bad guys come out and punch your girlfriend in the face.
Oh yeah,
and then put her over their shoulder and then take her away. And at the end of Double Dragon, the first one, you fight each other if you're playing a 2-player game.
Oh, I played a game that did that recently. At Too Many Games, it was the Die Hard arcade game. We played it till the very end. At the very end, you get to fight each other. It was cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because there's you save the girl at the end, but only one of you can get the girl, so you have to fight.
Yeah. Oh, that's like Castle Crashers did that too. Like a long time. This is a very different game.
I love that game. Castle Crashers was great. Really like that.
Yeah, I adore Castle Crashers. But I think I was more of a Streets of Rage guy as far as like beat 'em ups go. Like I don't know, there's something about Streets of Rage that I really liked. But I think I played Double Dragon. What the hell was it? There was like some not remake. It was on 360, I think. Maybe it was just a straight up port. Double Dragon 360 arcade.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh man, it's gonna bother me.
Yeah, Double Dragon's kind of like, I mean, there was Double Dragon games through the 90s, and into the 2000s, but they're more reminiscent of like the 80s 8-bit arcade style as opposed to like what you're saying, Final Fight and those other games are more of like 16-bit next gen brawlers, which were also great.
Oh yeah, it was just an XBLA version of Double Dragon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I did play it a little bit. I don't really remember much of it.
It's fun. It's very simple. I mean, it's very simple and it's fun. So
yeah. We'll
see how this all goes. So I'll be excited about that. Zenless Zone Zero, so the MiHoYo game that recently launched. It launched on July 4th, actually. This is insane. But it already has 50 million players, according to a press release from MiHoYo. It's available on where it's mostly being played on phone, and it's also available on PC, but it is available on PlayStation 5. It's an action RPG gacha game, free to play. And MiHoYo, of course, is the studio behind Genshin Impact, as well as Hankei Star Rail. So I don't know anyone that's playing this game, but it's supposed to be, I think Jaffe was playing it maybe. It's supposed to be really good. I just can't get down with the monetary mechanics of the game. It would be cool if they sold some of these games. I know it kind of defeats the purpose, but it would be cool if you just said like, you can buy the game straight up, or we're going to nickel and dime you to death. in some way. And I know you can play it without spending any money, I guess, but it becomes very grindy, and that's obviously not the way they make money. So it just turns me off from ever trying this stuff. The same thing with Genshin Impact or Honkai Star Rail, where I'm like, these are probably pretty cool, but I'm not going to play them. I like my boxed, not literally, but my complete games, single player games. So Dustin, any interest in Zenless Zone Zero, you absolute nerd?
I tried Honkai Star Rail and didn't really care for it. So, and I haven't really seen anything on this, but, not to beat this joke to death, but talk about, we were saying about us servicing gooners. MiHoYo, they've nailed this down to a science with these. I've seen some of the characters some of you fucking degenerates are posting on Twitter, and they got it down. They know how to extract your money. They know all the right curves to hit. So good for them.
I'm looking up some of the characters here. So we got this redhead girl, the little booty shorts on. A bunch of guys. It doesn't seem that. There's a bear in a white coat and a gold chain. It's very interesting. Here, check out this guy.
That services someone.
I put it in the chat here. There's just a picture of him there. He looks pretty cool. Yeah, he definitely has some energy to him.
Sure. Yeah, maybe this isn't quite as bad as I thought, but it's got to be in there. Here's
his name is Ben
outfit.
Bigger.
Yeah, don't look it up on Twitter. This would be my recommendation.
Oh, dude, there's like a dog character too. I'm sure people are going fucking. The
Jesus
weirdest
Christ.
people are playing this shit probably. Oh boy,
I just want peace.
I understand. Zenless Zone Zero, 50 million players. Twice as much as any PlayStation exclusive has ever had.
that really is so crazy, man. I mean, the phone, obviously phones play a massive part in that, but like, that's such a wild amount of people to be playing something like this.
After just a week.
Yeah.
MiHoYo is definitely a powerful company, like really powerful. Sony's, it's important to note just from a strategic point of view, if anyone's interested, those games are not on Xbox or Switch. I think, right? Genshin might be on Switch now. But these are like, Sony like made a deal to get these games on PlayStation, and I think that's a fucking huge deal, considering the player base on them. So, congrats to those guys for identifying it. I would have never been able to do that. All right. A couple more small news items before we get into what we're playing. Ys 10 Nordics launches in the West on October 25th. It will be on PS4 and PS5. This is the newest game in the Ys series since Ys 9 came out in 2019. That was Monstrum Nox. I never played. Did I play? No, I didn't even play Ys 9 at all. I played like halfway through, I think, Lacrimosa of Dana on Vita, which was Ys 8. That was from 2016. So I don't know. I kind of want to go back and replay some of this stuff as well. Plus, I think the Oath in Felghana, which is technically the Arc of what is it? Naphatism or something like that? Nafstim? You know what I'm talking about,
No,
Dustin?
I've never played one of these.
That was a PS2 game. I think they just announced that was being remade. So all these games are eventually going to be playable on PlayStation, which is really cool all the way through. My first Ys game was Wanderers from Ys, which was Ys 3 on SNES, although it was obviously available on TurboGrafx, where a lot of people played it, and some Japanese PC stuff as well. And then I went back and played Ys 1 and 2. I don't know if you would like it or not, Dustin. Ys 3 changed it, and Ys 3 was like kind of like a weird side scroller thing. I don't even know what they were really doing with it, but in Ys 1 and 2, you just walk into enemies and it damages them.
Oh.
As opposed to swinging your weapon. And then it became more of an arcadey action game later on. So it changes a lot. But anyway, people are really amped about Ys 10. People really, obviously, I mean, this is another company that Nihon Falcom just is so powerful with the weebs. With between Ys and the Trails games. They're really doing a great job of getting this stuff out. NIS will be publishing Ys 10, so people can look forward to that. I doubt that Chris will play it. I don't know, Dustin, if you've played any of the Ys games, but
no, I've always been kind of interested though, because it's like one continuing story, right?
Yeah, it's always about a character named Adol. And when I was a kid, I used to call it Wise, because for people that don't know, it's YS. People say either Ys or Ease. And I didn't know that was the way it was called until again, that was another one of the things I think when I was at IGN, people were like, or I heard someone say it, thank God I didn't come out with like, because we used to call the Ys 3 Wanderers from Wise. That's what we called it. We had no fucking clue.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great little series. I was really into the Vita iteration, which I think was Memories of Celceta, which was a pretty early Vita game. That was a really nice game. If you're into this, again, it's very simple action RPG. They get a little more complicated later on. And then finally, I just wanted to shout this out. This is obviously a very small game, but I'm a fan of WayForward, the indie retro style developer that's probably best known for the Shantae games, but has done a lot of different stuff, including DuckTales Remastered and all sorts of great stuff. Their obscure Game Boy Advance game from 2005, Sigma Star Saga, which I have never played, which was published by Namco in the States and by Atari in Europe and never came out anywhere else. I was looking up gameplay of it. It's a hybrid of a space shooter, kind of like our game's Hyroxia at Lilimo, combined with like a role-playing game with lots of like storytelling and all of that. And it's being ported to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 via, unfortunately, limited run games. And so if you're interested in supporting them, you would have to go through them, but because it's running on their Carbon engine. But this game looks really cool. And I wanted to give it a shout out. Lots of different small things get announced, so I wouldn't say this is a big deal by any stretch of the imagination, but it caught my eye. So I wanted to point that out. All right. Let's get into what we're playing. Dustin, you're playing a Nintendo game and an old game, so I'll let you go first.
Sure. I've been playing my insanely expensive copy of Misadventures of Tron Bonne, and it's been fun. It's cute. It's a spin-off of Mega Man Legends, and you play as the titular character, Tron Bonne, of course, going around trying to steal stuff in order to get enough money to save your brother, Teasel Bonne. And this game's cool because it's made in the Mega Man Legends engine. You can tell it was probably a pretty cheap game to make because they were able to use a lot of Mega Man Legends assets. And it has a whole mechanic of you controlling and managing your serve bots. And just last night, if one of your serve bots becomes lazy, you have to send him to a torture chamber and manually torture him into submission. So you're like, he runs around on a track and you have to make the spikes go up and then you light him on fire. And then like a Looney Tunes character, you drop a giant anvil on him. So it's nice. It's a surprisingly dark kids game because there's also these missions where you have to go rob banks and these kids will throw rocks at you, and then you just blow them up. You just shoot them with your Buster arm, and then they get blown up.
Away.
That's it. Yeah. They're done. So it's been fun. I think I'm almost done with it, but yeah, I'm kind of between games right now. So it's been a cool time for me to just go back and check out some old stuff. I'm thinking my next game, since I've just been into playing on my CRT with original hardware, might be time to actually play and finish Symphony of the Night. I think it's time.
Man up.
So I think I'm going to do that next. I've also been playing on both my analog Pocket and on my Game Boy Micro. Been playing Mario Golf Advance Tour. I was in the mood. I was thinking, should I boot up Everybody's Golf or try a different golf game? And so I never tried Mario Golf Advance Tour. And these games are really weird because both this game and the tennis game on GBA, and maybe there's some other ones too, they're made by Camelot, which they make all the Mario sports games, but they've also made Golden Sun, you know that, the RPGs for the Game Boy Advance. So Mario Golf Advance Tour is a full-blown golf RPG where you're walking around much like you would in a Pokemon game, going to different golf courses, doing mini games, leveling up your character, stuff like that. So it has this whole other element where I've been playing the game and there's a picture of Mario on the wall, but he hasn't shown up yet. You're playing as these small chibi anime characters. So kind of, I knew this going into it, so I expected it, but it's not what you would expect of a Mario Golf or just a Mario sports game in general. But I have not a secret, but a low-key passion for arcade golf games. Everybody's Golf, amazing game. I played the hell out of that. we haven't played in a while, but it was a party favorite for a while. Anytime we had people over, we were playing, like passing the controller, playing everybody's golf. So this one's pretty good. The last Mario Golf game on Switch, not so great, but I can see why people love this one. And I got to check out the GameCube one as well. Toadstool Tour. I've heard many good things.
That's a legendary game.
Yeah.
Legendary.
I think I bought that. I think I have it and I haven't checked it out yet. So yeah, just some light stuff since I went so hard on Shadow of the Erdtree that I was like, let's just take a breather before we jump into anything big. So just playing some old stuff, having fun with that.
Mario Golf on 64 and Mario Golf on GameCube were like mainstay games for me and my friends growing up. Yeah. We fucking loved those games. Oh my God. They're so great. But I never played the Game Boy Advance one, surprisingly. So yeah, sounds pretty cool. All right, Chris, let's go over to you.
Yeah, so dabbling in a couple things. I'm still streaming Elden Ring. So like I'm still doing that. But in between, while I'm not doing that, I jumped into Crow Country because I was just always very curious about this game. I love the PS1 aesthetic. That's like a comfort zone for me. And it's very, very PS1. It's very, very that era. Obviously, it looks incredible in comparison to a PS1 would not run this. But the aesthetic, the style of it is very cool. Survival horror is very neat. And so I jumped into the demo just to make sure, like, oh, is this something that I'm going to want to play? And I think the answer is yes, but not right now. This feels like a perfect October, like a perfect Halloween season kind of cozy kind of game. It just feels like the wrong time for this. But I did like what I was playing. I liked the vibe of it. The ambience of it is very cool. The fact that everything is the fact that the enemies that you're fighting, at least in the beginning, early sections, are so blurry as a result of the style. Like there's like an implied kind of monstrosity to them that I really like because you can't quite make out what the hell. You can't quite make out what it is, and that actually makes them a lot more scary. I really love that. It's one of the details I liked a lot about the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books from a long time ago, where like a lot of the illustrations were terrifying, but they were also like implied. Like, is that where the nose starts? Is that where it begins? Like, what is going on? So it's got that interpretive aspect going on. But I think I think this is one that I'm gonna say. I already bought it, but I'm saving it for October. I feel like it's a perfect Halloween kind of game. And when I put that down, I figured, oh, you know what? I'm going to jump into X Defiant because a friend of mine's been asking me to jump into it. And I think I said a couple in a previous episode, probably not recent, that like, yeah, I was probably interested in checking it out. And then I just forgot to check it out. I forgot that it was even out. And so I jumped into it. And I can't stand it. Don't confuse that with it's bad, because it's perfectly fine. Like it's a perfectly adequate, like Call of Duty-esque kind of shooter. It's fine, but I cannot stand what this game is and what it represents to me, because like I was playing through it and the map layouts are so standard. It's very like uninteresting. It plays perfectly fine as you would expect. But here's something, I don't know if you guys saw this thing that I tweeted when I was playing it. I'll share it in here now. This is such a simple thing, but it really set me off when I saw this, because I don't know why developers insist on creating geometry that telegraphs to the player that you can interact with it, but then it's just not there even. Like it's fake. And I don't know why this is like why this constantly happens. Why so many games have all these like invisible walls. It happened a lot with early Call of Duty games too, where like there are things that you felt like you could hop over that you couldn't. And it's part of the reason that like I never really played those games early on or really enjoyed them. The game's full of this stuff where it's just like, why is this chest high wall in front of me in a game with a vault, but I can't vault over it? Why is this here? What this telegraphs is so wrong. And the video that I shared with the guys was like this, like there's this ledge that looks so clearly like a ramp up to like a higher section of the map where it's like, oh, if I have a sniper rifle, I can get up there and maybe get like a good vantage point. but it's just it's just not there. It's a fake ledge. And I don't get it. Because surely if you're building that, you know what it looks like. And so I don't know. That's like the least of the game's problems, to be honest. Like it's just very generic and very fine. And I was like having a decent time up until that point because it was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's like a free kind of minor kind of Call of Duty fill. Okay, it's kind of satisfying to run around and shoot. It's like, oh, okay, this is fine. But the second I feel like the geometry of the map is tricking me, then I suddenly feel like I can't trust my eyes. And that bothers the hell out of me. And I can't. So I'm probably done with X-Defiant. I played it for a good like 2.5 hours before these like little things began to like pile up into this mountain that I just couldn't stomach anymore. I'm sure there's an audience for this. It plays fairly satisfyingly. It's just very, very two-dimensional. It's a very flat game. There's not a lot of verticality to it. It's very much like run down lanes, shoot somebody if you see them first. If they shoot you, or if they see you first, they'll shoot you and kill you. It's fine. It just doesn't have a lot of the dynamic verticality that I'm looking for in really any of my first-person shooters. And I just, for somebody like me, I just couldn't recommend it. But it seems
controversial. Like there's some problems. Seems like the team or at least the front-facing people that are on the team that deal with the fans are kind of irritated.
Oh, really?
That's the vibe I've gotten. I don't know. I mean, it's all anecdotal, but I read a piece, I think, on Video Games Chronicle where they were saying, I'm not reporting on it because I could give a fuck about X-Defiant, but
yeah.
But it was something like if you don't like the game, just don't play it kind of attitude.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, don't worry, I won't.
Yeah. But people can go read more
Way
about
ahead
that.
of you.
I didn't include that here.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I've been playing. I've obviously just assume in the background that I'm still playing Elden Ring and I'm still playing Destiny. And I don't have anything to say about it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Sorry, I'm writing a note. Okay. For me, so last week I told you guys I was playing the game Proteus, the 2022 boomer shooter FPS from Bounding Box kickstarted game that came to market and is on PS4 and PS5. Really, really liked it. Definite deep Doom vibes in my opinion. And platinumed it. So platinum number 161. An annoying trophy in it that I had to grind for probably an entire night was 10,000 kills, which is just so many kills to get in that game. But I finally did it. So yeah, really fun game. Highly recommended if you're looking for a cool boomer shooter to play. Definitely check that out. And then I've been messing around with the Power Wash Simulator DLC. So as I think I noted in previous weeks, I did all of the SpongeBob DLC and all the Back to the Future DLC. And then I downloaded the Warhammer 40K DLC and I'm almost all the way through that. What's interesting about this, and this is kind of strange first of all, Power Wash Simulator is fucking awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And it's really, really fun. But I don't know if other people that have played the DLC get the same vibe I do, which is like the DLC seems to be getting harder, which is kind of weird. And in Power Wash Simulator, difficulty is just tediousness. And the 40K stuff is a little tedious just because they're machines, a lot of them like in their tanks or whatever, and there's just so many little lines and pipes and all these different things you have to get. It's like, oh my God. So the final one I'm doing is like this massive tank machine, and I've had to do it in like multiple parts and I'm still not done with it yet because it just takes so long to do it. The next DLC pack is the Alice in Wonderland DLC pack, and I'll probably buy that down the line, and check that out. But there's something very, very satisfying about Power Wash Simulator. I find it very zen. And I think Ben Smith, our associate producer, is the same way. Like I think he also finds Power Wash Simulator to be surprisingly zen. And so yeah, the DLC is cool. It's expensive. I was saying last week it was $6.99 a pack. I think it's actually $7.99 a pack. So a little bit expensive, but again, I didn't pay for the game because I got it on PS Plus, so I don't feel that bad.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So you didn't grow up with SpongeBob at all, right? You like know nothing about SpongeBob?
No. In fact, it's so funny you say that because I saw a thing today and I asked Micah if it really was in SpongeBob because it was a video. I didn't know if it was edited or not of SpongeBob watching the TV, and there's like a sea anemone or something on it, and he's watching like
Sponge dancing.
It's like and then like his pet whatever snail comes in and he changes the channel really quick, and I'm like, did this really happen on the show? And she's like, yeah, it really did. So yeah, I have no No knowledge
Dude,
of it.
I love the idea of you wandering through these like SpongeBob locations with no connection to them at all. Like there's something like stone-faced cleaning SpongeBob's boat or whatever is hilarious. That it's just completely missed you.
Yeah, I had to. Mike is a big SpongeBob fan, so I had she was telling me, like, filling me in. I'm like, what is this? Who is this? There's a specific stage, because I guess so there's like 5 in each of these DLC packs. There's 5 stages, and some of them are like really big, and some of them are really small, but they often take place on like a similar map or in a similar place. So the first 3 or 4 stages in SpongeBob is like in their little town. So you do like one of their buildings and then another of the buildings and so on. She was telling me everything, but then the final stage is like full of references, and I didn't get any of them, and she was pointing them all out to me, basically.
That's so funny.
Chris, isn't
man.
the lore of SpongeBob, because it's a Bikini Bottom, isn't it supposed to be their like mutated fish and sea creatures from nuclear testing?
Yeah. I don't know if that's what Steven Hillenburg, the creator, rest in peace, had in mind necessarily, but that is like a popular theory, was that because it's in Bikini Atoll, I think, like where they blow up, where they test all the nukes, and so the idea is that they live in Bikini Bottom and they're all fucked up. And I do love that idea. I don't know if that was actually the plan, but dude, SpongeBob is iconic. Like the first couple seasons of SpongeBob, and I don't know how controversial this is to say, but I'm going to say it, better than The Simpsons has ever been. Like sincerely, like by a mile. It's crazy how good that show is.
I never thought Simpsons was that great to begin with.
Me neither.
I think we've talked about that.
Bother me,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I never. You have to understand, guys. Like, I was 5 or whatever when Simpsons came out, and there's like a picture of me at field day in like 2nd grade. So this was like 1991, and one of my friends has like his Bart Simpson, his cup with him or whatever. Like, this shit was shoved down my throat from a young age, long before I was ever able to understand it, and I never liked it. Yeah. And when I got into high school in the late 90s, I started trying to intentionally watch The Simpsons to understand it, because I felt like I was missing something so deep about my generation. And I just never got into it. It's just not for me. Like, I think Family Guy is like infinitely better, which people hate when I say that. It's like Family Guy is way better than The Simpsons. Ugh. So it does not surprise me that would be better than The Simpsons, because almost anything is better than The Simpsons.
Right, but I mean it in like a complimentary way towards this. I really do think I don't really like The Simpsons either, really at all. But like, I really do. My dad used to watch SpongeBob with me, and he would crack the fuck, because it's very layered, and it's got a lot of stuff like the thing that you just mentioned about like the sea sponge dancing, where it is just funny, and they understand that like delivery is as important as writing is. Like, there's so many iconic line deliveries in that show that they're so funny, just the way that people say it.
When we were in like 10th or 11th grade, there's the part with Patrick. He's like, "Who you calling Pinhead?" You know what I'm talking about? And he looks like really dumb. We would always say that constantly. It had no meaning to it.
And they had like the photorealistic close-ups that were like ugly and like, I don't know. There's something, that's a special show. I actually think you would like the first few seasons. I think you would actually enjoy it.
No, I really do think I should sit down and watch it at some point, just for the cultural relevance. Micah and I often talk about how she never saw the Lord of the Rings movies until we watched them a couple of years ago, I guess. And we were remarking, it's like so funny that she experienced basically the whole movie, like all 3 movies, through memes. Like every 5 seconds was like, that's a meme, that's a meme, that's a meme. Like, dude, it's endless. And that's kind of the way it is with SpongeBob, where I'm like, it's so in your face that you kind of have to go check it out, you know?
That was my experience with Lord of the Rings too. I didn't watch Lord of the Rings until I watched them with like Lacey in like 2017 or something.
Unbelievable.
I missed like all of them. Like, I don't know what it was. I think everybody was talking about him, and that kind of made me like not care, because I feel like I had seen it already. I think I just kind of assumed that like, it's a fucking old guy with a dragon or something. Like, I don't know. But I did play like Return to the King and loved it, and like Lord of the Rings Conquest, and I liked it. And I don't know. I don't know, it's so weird. Sometimes you just miss stuff, and you can't really explain why or how. It just kind of never hits until it does, like way later, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah, I wonder what it is about. Well, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, the movies are awesome, the Lord of the Rings movies, but it's so funny. Like, why was that targeted so heavily for memes? Like, you really could make a volume of memes about almost anything. Like, that was targeted as being like something that we all shared or something, you know? It's very funny, and I love thinking about that. It's interesting. Anyway. And then, so last night I was, again, looking around like, what am I going to play? What am I going to play? There's so many games. It's almost paralyzing. And I realized that so to kind of show my support, I bought Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush when they were released immediately on PlayStation. And they were just on my cross-media bar. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to play Pentiment. And so for about 3 hours, I played through the beginning of Pentiment. The PSN tracker says I'm 11 or 12% through the game. So it seems like I'm going so much slowly, but I'm reading the fucking codex. Micah was getting mad at me because she was watching it. She had beaten the game already on Switch. And she's like, Jesus, Colin, like, you're really going to read the codex for like, I'm like, yeah. She's like, you don't know what this is or this is. I'm like, no, I know. I just want to see what they have to say. She's like, it was specifically like, for people that don't know, and I'll explain what Pentiment is, but there's like a bunch of text in it and you can constantly press the touchpad on PS5 to bring, if it's underlined in red, you can read more about it. And I was reading more about like everything, and Venice came up and she's like, you don't know what Venice is? I'm like, I do, but not through the lens of the 16th century. I don't know what they're going to say about it. So Pentiment is a game from Obsidian and published by Xbox Game Studios. Very surreal. When you turn it on, there is no Xbox logo or anything. It just goes right to a menu. I was expecting to see that. And I was like, oh, that's going to be interesting. I wonder what it's going to be. But when you do turn the game on, there's like a cinematic in the beginning, like a credit sequence, and it says Xbox Game Studios. I'm like, this is very surreal. So because I have not played Sea of Thieves or Hi-Fi Rush or Grounded, this was my first experience with these kind of crossover games. And so that was a surreal moment. But Pentiment, for people that don't know, is an adventure game. And there's some choice-based mechanics in it, which are kind of cool, that have only kind of come to fruition as I stopped playing yesterday. But it takes place in the 15 teens. And it takes place in the Holy Roman Empire. And you're playing as a character named Andreas, who's an artist and a manuscript writer working out of a church that he's kind of he's traveling and he's doing work or whatever. And he lives with this local family and he kind of gets caught up into this great mystery that's going on. I won't get any further into the story. It's really cool. And I like it. It's a little stiff. I was saying to Micah, she was watching me play it. And again, she had already played it, so she's familiar with it. And I'm like, this is the kind of game that a lot of people will fucking hate. Like, yeah. Like I can totally imagine this game like a normal Game Pass bro or whatever, just being like, it takes place in the 16th century in the middle of Europe, and it's an adventure game where all you do is make choices and talk to people, and that's it. And there's some like small mini games or whatever. And so I'm like, I could totally see this being like not interesting at all to most people, and I get that. And I'm really into history and period stuff. I'm not really an adventure gamer, but adventure games usually require some level of cleverness that I just don't want to employ in these kinds of games. And this game doesn't really require that. It just requires you to go around and talk to people and make choices. One of the cool things I like about the game is that your character is kind of customized in like 3 or 4 different ways that you get to choose. So like I got to choose kind of where I'm from, and that indicates like the languages I can read and the familiarity I have with certain places. And then you can choose like what you believe or whatever I'm sorry, that's actually different. I'll get into that in a second. You choose like what kind of person you are. So I actually chose that I was a hedonist and basically out in pursuit of a life of pleasure, but you can just do like, 4 or 5 different options of that, scholar and so on and so forth. And then it asks you like what you've studied. And so I wanted to make like a kind of a cool narrative twist to my character that's really only for me, and it does come out in the game and the way you make choices and talk to people. But I made it so that my guy's kind of like a hedonist ladies man, womanizer, but he's deeply studied in Catholicism and like esoteric, like supernaturalism. So he's this like really weird, learned, gregarious guy trying to sleep with the chicks or like trying to just have fun and drink or whatever, lives with a local family. And then he finds himself kind of caught up in this conspiracy. And what's really cool about it, and I was wondering this, and Micah was doing a good job of not spoiling it for me, but I kept saying to her in the beginning of the game, I'm like, I wonder if this is going to be about like the Reformation. And it kind of is. And because it is that time and place, Germany-esque kind of area of Europe, Martin Luther being talked about, the ideas of the Reformation against Catholicism and indulgences and tithes and all that kind of thing being talked about openly. It's really cool, but it is a very deep game. And it won a Peabody Award. So you can see that like for a certain level of person, this is, I don't want to say level of person. That's not because it's like a judgment for a certain type of gamer that doesn't need kinetic action, doesn't mind that there's no voice acting. It requires lots of reading and patience and understanding of what's being said. It's pretty cool. And so I'm glad to be playing it. I'm early on still. Maybe I'll end up hating it. The one mechanic that came out towards the end of my game session yesterday, late last night, was you make different choices in lots of conversations, like constantly. You can answer 3, 4, 5 different ways often. And so the game will often tell you it's remembering things. And then towards the end of like this arc, all of my choices came to fruition. Like I would talk to someone and it would show me a chart of like all of the choices I made with this person and the balance of those choices. And so it goes this way or it goes that way. And I'm like, this is kind of neat. I know this was a side project for Obsidian and Josh Sawyer, and I know that it probably was criminally underplayed considering it was on Game Pass, and because it's just an obscure game. Like this game is never going to do millions of copies. Like it's just not that kind of game. But I think for people that are curious about it, there's something interesting here. Did either of you guys play this on Xbox or on PC when it came out in 2022? No,
not at all.
I don't know if you guys would like it or not. Chris, I doubt you would like it. Dustin, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I played a little bit. I think I played like an hour and a half of it, and I got pretty deep into it. I just but the issue that I had with it is that I don't think it's bad at all, but it's definitely one of these games. It's like, I can't play a game like this because I will fall asleep. Like, because reading puts me to sleep. Like I read to go to bed, you know, and I don't know if that's like a Pavlovian thing that I've done to myself by accident, where it's like, I think it's possible where because I only read in bed, reading makes me tired. I think it's very possible, but like because the game is all reading and there's like no voice acting at all, and also like there's like a calmness, like the sounds. There is a soundscape and like an ambience to it that's very, very soothing. Like it's a relaxing game, you know, it just from like a presentational standpoint. And so it just lulls me to sleep, and I was like, I can't play this. It's gonna take me 8 years to finish this game. But I was interested in like what was going on. I just couldn't. There's no shot that I was going to make it through that game. I also have no idea how long it is. I have a couple friends who finished it though.
It's like 10 to 12 hours, I think, if you just play it.
Yeah.
And I want to get, I don't know if I'm going to get the platinum in it or not. You have to play it twice either way. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll just play it straight up. And I wouldn't want to play a game like this with a guide either way, because it's like, it's not challenging. It's just, you just have to go through the motions. But
right.
I would like to play it a second time and make the opposite choices that I've made. Because it's pretty clever. It's pretty cool. But again, I could totally see why a lot of people would look at this as kind of a throwaway in some sense, because it's very static. It could almost be a choose your own adventure book or something.
Yeah.
The art is really good though. It's very interesting style. And I love the way they draw the trees, where you can see all the branches in the tree, in the leaves and stuff like that. The animals are very funny. I keep pointing them out to Micah, like, and she's played it again, but they're so funny looking. Like the horses have like these funny faces, the cows and the pigs and the sheep, the cats and dogs. The characters are unique, and yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting game. I'm glad to be playing it. So I'll hopefully be done with it by the time we meet again, and I'll be able to render a bird.
My favorite thing about it was that the text would, like, the fonts would be different based on who you were talking to and like what language that they were talking in. I thought that was like a really interesting way to convey character in a game that didn't have voice acting. I thought it worked really, really well.
Yeah, it's funny. I ended up shutting it off just because I couldn't read some of it very well.
Yeah.
But it is cool, yeah, for what Chris is saying is that like different characters saying different things will have different kinds of script, like kind of a Renaissance era, like late Renaissance era scripting that looks, like an embossed sort of manuscript. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But I just turned on the normal text eventually because I was like, I can't really see some of this well enough.
Hard.
So yeah, Pentiment from Obsidian. Check it out if you're interested in doing so. Okay, it's time for the news. 3 items this week. We can go through these pretty quick, I think, and then get into 6 inquiries from the audience. Wrap this bad boy up. Number 1. In an unusual announcement that only tangentially involves PlayStation for the time being, Sony has entered into an agreement with Pocketpair, the Japanese team behind the smash hit game Palworld, to help proliferate the IP and pursue new opportunities for the fledgling brand. This is particularly unusual since Palworld isn't even available on PlayStation platforms as of yet, though as we discussed just a week or two ago, indications are it's en route, having launched earlier this year on both PC and Xbox platforms. Word of the deal comes by way of an official press release which notes that Sony's music arm, Sony Music Entertainment, will leverage its Aniplex sub-brand, quote, to expand and develop new businesses associated with the hit game, end quote. For the unaware, Aniplex is a unit within Sony Music that was founded in the mid-90s, and it's heavily involved with Sony's anime, music, and TV initiatives. As the leader of this joint venture, Aniplex, quote, will be responsible for developing the reach of the intellectual property and for expanding commercial business endeavors, including the global licensing and merchandising activities associated with Palworld outside of the interactive game. End quote. The press release notes that the game had 25 million players only a month after it launched, though newer numbers are harder to find as the title, like so many before it, fell back to earth. Still, it being roped into the Sony brand no doubt means that the rumored PlayStation port can't be far behind, and where things go from here remains unknown. Dustin.
Yeah.
Palworld. Is this a surprising thing? It's not a huge deal. I don't think it's important to note that they explicitly say outside of the interactive game. So this is stuff that will have nothing to do with the core project, which I think will always be the most relevant part of the business for them. But Sony getting involved with this game is pretty interesting. I wonder if this comes from some sort of pursuit. First of all, segmenting it from PlayStation since it's not first party and therefore wouldn't be part of their, or second party where it wouldn't be part of their own PlayStation Studios initiatives, as an example, and kind of getting it out of there and letting someone else more apt to focus on it like an anime sub-brand under Sony Music. But that no doubt this will have some relevance to PlayStation in the mid to long term. So what do you think is going on here?
Yeah, so obviously Palworld, insane. Its all-time peak on Steam was 2.1 million players. And it's nowhere near that now, but still, as of right now on Steam charts, there were 48,000 people playing, and there was 81,000 at the peak in the last 24 hours. So clearly still a strong game that's holding on. I'm curious about this in that Palworld, whether it's a good or a bad thing, Palworld is kind of a gimmick. And don't get me wrong, I think gimmicks can be good. If someone has a game that has a certain angle to it that's very unique, whether it's not a gimmick, I don't know. I just think that a lot of times people associate the word gimmick as means it's just a cheap thing to get people in, and then it's not a big deal. But I wonder how much people would care about this IP outside of its game. Because in my time playing Palworld, which, to be clear, wasn't anywhere near as long as a lot of people that fully played through all of it, I don't remember any of the pals. I remember some sheep and some of the bigger ones that I caught, but I don't remember their name. And I don't really remember the story or anything like that. And I just wonder if you're getting into some media outside of the game, what the legs will be on that, just because it's one thing where it's like, aha, yeah, it's Pokemon, but it's a crafting game and there's guns in it and there's like an evil side to it. Cool. But I don't know. I wonder if this will appeal to people more than just that. So we'll have to see, though. I might be totally wrong because maybe the fan base around this game are dedicated to whatever lore and the different individual monsters and stuff like that. And that's cool. But I certainly am not interested in watching a Palworld anime or movie or anything like that. But maybe people are looking for a big Pokemon alternative. I just would have hoped it would have been more different. Like even something like Digimon, as similar as it was to Pokemon, was pretty unique in terms of what was going on in its world. But I don't know. So Invisimals, dude. Dang.
What
was the other one?
What is that?
That's the PlayStation one.
Was it a Monster Rancher as well in the 90s?
Yeah, Monster Rancher was
that was
PS1
another big one.
Era.
So
yeah. Chris, do you have anything you want to add about this Palworld? I think Dustin makes an interesting point about its stickiness and its overall relevance, but I do think the low risk, low reward approach to this is probably wise. In my opinion, Sony probably saw that how big this game was on PC and Xbox, and we're like, well, how do we stem this in the future? What can we offer to them that hasn't already been offered from something like Xbox? And it's like, maybe we can offer them our multimedia approach that the other companies don't really do as well as us. I mean, even Nintendo's coming to us to make their Zelda movie. So can we do something with them like this? So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's smart, I think, especially because it is so separate. Like you said, it's not in PlayStation Studio, so there's a degree of kind of, just see what happens with it with this other kind of subsidiary. But at the same time, I guess my initial reaction when I heard this was like, isn't that kind of like a perilous, isn't that kind of like a controversial company to get involved with? Because I thought there was legal trouble with like Nintendo, but I guess not.
They would have done it at this point.
Yeah, they would have done it. I remember hearing back when this was first brewing, or when that was first brewing, that there was maybe conversations about like, I remember the last thing I heard about it was like Nintendo was planning to respond or something, and then
I'm sure they did all their due diligence,
Yeah, and then I never followed up on it. So I guess it's free and clear, and everything's perfectly fine. So knowing that, I mean, yeah, why not? Why not get involved? I guess my question is like, how hungry are people for any kind of? How hungry are people for more Pal World that isn't game oriented? Like, I really can't imagine that there's many people invested in the lore of Pal World. But like, I mean, if they can figure out how to make something interesting out of it, then why not?
I don't know what the fuck Pal World's even about, so I don't know how deep how deep that rabbit hole goes, but yeah, this could be cool. Again, low risk, low reward. I think if they were that interested, they would have just bought the IP. Although I don't know if that would have been onerously expensive. I get the vibe, Dustin, personally, and Chris, I mean, you're the one who brought it up, is it must have passed some sort of barometer for Nintendo, although Nintendo has been known to jump off the top rope years after something has happened, when they cross their T's and dot their I's, and maybe that's what they're doing here. But you would think that they would have sprung into action. The things that I was seeing seemed pretty compelling to me, that they definitely were copying stuff, or it seemed like, I don't want to say definitely, that it seemed like they were copying stuff, but people smarter than me and people with a legal mind like Hogue were saying that there's really nothing there for them to be able to do about it. And so I'll take those people's words for it. So I guess this must have been cleared in some way by Sony too, and their people, of saying this is probably fine. And we'll see what happens. So I'm much more interested to see when the PS5 game is coming. For people that didn't listen to the episode a few weeks ago, it's not been overtly announced yet, I think, but it's been blatantly teased because of the heart colors, which are becoming a thing now on Twitter and other social media platforms, where it's like the green heart means Xbox, the red heart means Nintendo, the blue heart means PlayStation, and I think the black heart means Steam, something like that. And so they tweeted something out, Pal World, with the blue hearts, and everyone's like, okay, so that means a PlayStation iteration is coming, so we'll keep an eye out for that. And I wonder if it'll do any numbers. We'll see. All right, number 2. Thanks to serendipitous timing, we have new software and hardware sales data from both the PlayStation Network and industry tracking firm Circana, meaning we can cover all the numbers at one time this month. Circana tracks hardware and software sales in the United States, the planet's biggest core gaming market, and it shows that yet again, PlayStation 5 was the region's best-selling console in both units sold and revenue. PlayStation Portal is the United States' best-selling accessory, both for the month of May 2024 and for the year to date, though it's important to note that spending is down across the board year over year in both hardware and software. The best-selling game in America for the month of May was Ghost of Tsushima, the 2020 Sucker Punch game, once released on PS4 and then PS5 and now on PC, which is the reason it rose up the charts so significantly. Other notable games in the top 20 include Helldivers 2, holding on at 4, MLB The Show 24 at 5, Xbox's resurgent Sea of Thieves, which is now on PlayStation and slots in at 6, Stellar Blade at 10, Spider-Man 2 at 13, and Rise of the Ronin hanging around at 19. Helldivers 2 remains the year's best-selling game across all platforms in the US, with Dragon's Dogma 2 at 3, MLB The Show 24 at 4, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth at 5, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League at 8, Persona 3 Reload at 10, Spider-Man 2 at 14, Stellar Blade at 16, Rise of the Ronin at 17, and Skull and Bones at 20. When ordered only by PlayStation Games, this was the top 10 games sold in order for the month of May. Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, MLB The Show 24, Sea of Thieves, Stellar Blade, Helldivers 2, Spider-Man 2, Minecraft, Rise of the Ronin, Elden Ring, and Madden NFL 24. Calendar adjusted, PlayStation 5 is outselling PlayStation 4 in the US by 8%. Over on PSN, numbers were also given on the PlayStation blog and tracking only digital sales without PC's inclusion. And this is for the month of June. Grand Theft Auto 5 was somehow the best-selling game on PS5. Other notable titles include Sea of Thieves at 4, MLB The Show 24 at 6, V Rising at 7, Helldivers 2 at 10, Spider-Man 2 at 11, Ghost of Tsushima at 14, and Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus sneaking in at 20. The most popular free-to-play games across PS4 and PS5 for the month were in order: Multiverses, Roblox, Fortnite, Warzone, and Fall Guys, rounding out the top 5. What do we think here, Chris? Big sales for Ghost of Tsushima on PC. Now, I made this argument with David Jaffe that I have not articulated before. That on Moriarty Cross Jaffe on Sacred Symbols Plus, that there's something to the idea. I get the idea, like, nebulously, of we have this kind of nebulous notion that selling games on PC is going to be bad for our brand, that mobile games are going to dilute our brand, that all of these different things are going to hurt us, and yet Ghost of Tsushima is the best-selling game in the country for the month because of its release on PC, while PlayStation 5 is the best-selling console on the market, while PlayStation 5 is outselling PS4. And I was making the argument that Sony seems to be successfully pursuing, in some sense, the best of all worlds. And Ghost of Tsushima's performance seems to note that. It's not like PS5 was the third best-selling console as Ghost of Tsushima was coming out. It doesn't seem like it matters. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really believed that putting your games elsewhere dilutes your brand, especially in the way that PlayStation. I feel like PlayStation is doing it in the smartest way possible, where they're really waiting for as many people to jump on for these things as possible, and giving enough time for people to, like, well, we've extracted so much out of this already. We're tapped out on this ecosystem. Let's go somewhere else. I feel like that allows them to kind of have their cake and eat it too in some way, because they still have the identity of the brand. Like, it's still very associative. Like, these are still very much PlayStation games, and they've been missing from Steam and associated with PlayStation for long enough that even when they come to Steam, they're still PlayStation games. I think they've played a very smart hand with the kind of delayed release format. I've just never really believed in the idea that dilutes their brand. As far as how it's doing, it's awesome. Ghost of Tsushima is great. I think it's one of those examples of, I mean, we joke about it a lot, and I see the sentiment online too, where it's like the first good Assassin's Creed, where it's like, yeah, dude, it's a really, it is kind of that kind of game, except just taken very good care of and done very, very artistically well. And to see it there again is really cool. I just when you were reading this, the big thing for me was Grand Theft Auto 5 still being like, that is amazing to me, because we all know that GTA 6 is coming, right? And you would assume that, like, maybe that's why, I guess, in some way, or it's like, ooh, let me jump in, I guess, and see what I've been missing if you somehow haven't played Grand Theft Auto 5 at all yet. But, like, that game's gonna make so much fucking money, I can't even begin to fathom it, if Grand Theft Auto 5 is still selling this well.
Yeah, billions.
God damn.
And it will make billions of dollars in profit pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
Really wild stuff. Dustin, anything you want to add about the sales data scene?
Yeah, I mean, the thing Chris was saying, they can have their cake and eat it too, but I think they're kind of triple dipping on eating their cake, because this is also free marketing. It's not free marketing. They're getting paid because this is only boosting Ghost of Tsushima around all the people playing it. You said the number one selling game. And in the next 3 months, most likely, we don't know for sure, they're going to announce Ghost of Tsushima 2, assumingly alongside PS5 Pro, I would say. If it's not then I would say definitely within the next year. And all these people are going to be fresh on it and be like, damn, that looks amazing. And as long as it comes out looking great, this goes back into what they were saying, or I guess Herman Holst during that investor Q&A, where I think that if PC players are playing and they're really into it, and then 2 is shown and it looks amazing, and here's some awesome hardware to play it on, then maybe it could convince, maybe not all of them, but certainly some of them, to hop in and get a PS5 Pro, because they can show that it's like, hey, on PS5 Pro, you'll be able to play this at 4K, 60, no compromises. It'll be much like playing the version on the original on PC, then why not? And of course, yeah, some PC players are going to just wait, and that's fine. I think they know that, but I think that, as you said, Colin, the strategy is working for them, as its PS5 is outpacing the PS4. So I think, yeah, that's a big deal. And I'm trying to remember, there was something else in here that I saw. Oh, this is kind of unrelated. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League came up. Did you see they're giving that game away for free on Prime Day for PC already? So yeah, if you have a PC and you have Amazon Prime, I mean, I'm going to get it. I don't have it at all yet. I'm sure Lockmort will hop in for a round or two with me. So I'll check it out for free on PC. But
well, Godspeed.
But yeah, and then yeah, GTA, of course, being number one it's like always surprising and not surprising at the same time. That just kind of like a water's wet. GTA 5 continues to sell. It will continue to sell after GTA 6 comes out, I'm sure. So, Chris, I saw a clip, again, unrelated, but I didn't know they did. Of course, they do RP servers for GTA 5, but I saw an RP for Red Dead Redemption 2 online, and it looked awesome. This guy was just going in and just like pissing in public, and they're like, "Hey, we don't do that around here." And they were like trying to beat him up, and then he just shot somebody. I was like, dude, GTA RP, it sounds like a bit much, but it sounds fun. I think that Red Dead RP would be way cooler, and you could use the voice if you did it.
Yeah, exactly. There's something about that online scene, that specific online scene, that I'm so very, very curious about, and I would love to do it, but also like there's something intimidating about it as well.
They're
like,
so serious, dude.
It's very serious. I feel like there's a lot of external kind of stuff that you would have to do. I'm sure there's like maybe like mods that maybe allow certain things that maybe not, and also there's communities and all that. It's a very intimidating thing, but there's definitely no doubt a facet to these games that I can't imagine that Grand Theft Auto 6 isn't considering as they're building this, where this kind of Second Life aspect is taken to like a maximum kind of tier. And I am so fascinated by it. I do want to do like a GTA like RP or like a Red Dead RP at some point, but it's just like I don't know. It's intimidating. It's like Dungeons and Dragons to me, where it's like I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't think I have that kind of energy or interest.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, number 3. Things are officially getting serious over on PlayStation Plus, as we have a bunch of new games to discuss that are coming to both the PS Plus game catalog at the extra tier and new classics coming to the premium tier. Let's start with the games being added to the extras game catalog beginning on July 16th. Remember, these will be available to you as part of your subscription if you're at the extra or premium tiers. On PlayStation 5 only, you can look forward to Gunfire's third-person shooter RPG hybrid Remnant 2, which came out in 2023. On PS4 only, you'll gain access to the following titles: Grasshopper Manufacture's 2019 action game Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes, Marvelous's 2022 zombie survival game Deadcraft, and Ubisoft's 2016 snow sport game Steep. Across both PS4 and PS5, on the other hand, come the following: Square Enix's late 2022 PSP-era remake Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, Taleworld's 2022 strategy RPG Mountain Blade 2 Bannerlord, the 2022 iteration of Jackbox's games trivia series, the Jackbox Party Pack, Owlcat's 2022 RPG Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, and Grasshopper Manufacture's 2021 action game No More Heroes 3, which came to PlayStation in 2022. Now, that's good stuff, but it gets even more interesting when we head over to the premium tier, which will include the exceptional Job Simulator for PSVR 2, a 2023 port of the 2016 original, which was itself a PSVR launch title that year. But then there are 3 really notable older so-called classics that will perk your ears, beginning with the PlayStation 2 launch game Volition's RPG Summoner from the fall of 2000. Joining Summoner are 2 PSP ports: High Impact's 2007 Ratchet spin-off Ratchet & Clank's Size Matters, and most intriguing of all, Level 5's beloved 2006 strategy RPG Jeanne d'Arc, which migrated westward in 2007. All of these titles will likewise be available a la carte and should include trophy support. According to website True Trophies, the following games will be leaving the PS Plus game catalog on July 16th, the same day all of the aforementioned titles join the slate: Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Saints Row 4, Kingdoms 2 Crown, Fast and Furious Spy Racers, Rise of Shifter, and more. So nice. I mean, the classics are getting pretty good. Summoner is not a good game, but it is a very nostalgic game. A lot of people bought that game when PS2 launched because it seemed like it was maybe going to be the most promising game, but it wasn't. Jeanne d'Arc is a legendary PSP game, considered one of the great games on PSP. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. This seems like it's a pretty good rhythm. All these games will be available a la carte, as I said. So if you don't have the premium tier, you can buy whatever you'd like. It's getting to the point where like a really considerable backlog of older games are starting to stack up for me to play on a PlayStation. It's a unique place to be because they've been kind of behind on this. So, Chris, what do you think about this rhythm of games? Anything speak to you?
I mean, I definitely never played that PSP Ratchet. So, I mean, there's stuff that speaks to me. I'm just happy that we're finally getting to this point where older stuff is making its way back into the ecosystem. It feels like we're slowly getting to a point with the PlayStation Store and what's available there where it's starting to feel like that museum of and that archive of like, okay, we're delving into PSP, we're back to PS1, PS2. Okay. We're almost there. Obviously PS3 is still missing largely. But getting these classics now is cool, man. Like one of my biggest frustrations about PlayStation going into this generation was just like the lack of. There was just like seemingly no real attempt to pay homage to like just how long this brand has been around and how much exists for there to be available for the consumer base, and just the lack of seriousness in getting that stuff ported forward. And it does feel, at the very least, even though there's still a lot of stuff missing and there's still plenty more to go, it seems at the very least that they're taking things a little bit more seriously and they're putting some more consideration to what they bring forward. I'm stoked. It speaks very positively for the future, I think, that this is the cadence that we're getting.
What do you think, Dustin?
I'm really intrigued by this level 5. It's Jeanne d'Arc. I was curious because it's like, okay, there's a Joan of Arc connection there, obviously. So that sounds cool, like a anime Joan of Arc tactical RPG. I don't think I'd ever even heard of this game.
Really? Yeah, Sony published it. It's a Sony IP. When we used to make fake PlayStation All-Stars, like would-be rosters, but when the game was announced or when the game started to leak as Title Fight, 12 years ago, I always used to put her on the roster.
Yeah.
As like some obscure character that can be in it. So yeah, that was when level 5 and Sony were pretty deeply intertwined, but no longer.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is pretty cool, man. Pretty nice collection of games, along with recent months with Killzone and Resistance and the Wild Arms games and Legend of Dragoon and Jet Moto and the Twisted Metal games and stuff. They're really, I don't know not much to complain about. I could see people complaining about the volume, but I just don't think there's any wisdom to releasing volumes of games. You want to hold them and release them over many years. So nice little rhythm they got going on. And Summoner, that's just a weird one. I don't know who owns Summoner at this point. It must be Embracer. Summoner was a THQ game. Volition, I guess, yeah, Volition, yeah, that must have maybe been with Volition. Volition, of course, is the team that did Saints Row and was recently shut down. So Embracer is just putting these things in to try to scrape some money off the top. So keep an eye out for all of that. July 16th, they'll join the service and be available a la carte for the games that are not already available, specifically the classics. All right, let's get into 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on Patreon, patreon.com/lastdaymedia. I put up a thread in the newsfeed over there every week. I do it on Wednesdays in the afternoon, Eastern time, here in the United States. And then you respond. I go through them. I read them. Unfortunately, I read them all. And then I delete the thread when I'm done with it. So you know not to submit anymore. And then we do it all again the next week. You've heard some of those inquiries sprinkled out throughout. Let's get into 6 more as we wrap things up. Daniel Zarni wrote in, said, "Hey, CDC. With the recent info on the Xbox Game Pass pricing change, how do you all feel about this new structure? Also, does this mean PlayStation has a chance to get a price change out there too, now that Xbox has started the next phase of pricing? Thanks, boys." Lots of people wrote in about this. I wasn't going to talk about this week because it really has no super relevance to us on Sacred Symbols, but I think we can tie it into PlayStation Plus pretty easily and just talk about what we think about this overall. So I didn't want to ignore people out there. I'll go last. Chris, let's go to you first. What do you think about this new Xbox game pricing structure that has basically raised the price of the various tiers, removed day one access for first and second party games from kind of the middle and bottom tiers, I guess, or like that structure. And seems to treat the PC gamer and the PC subscriber better monetarily than their console gamer. So lots of controversy here about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think this was kind of always, I think they kind of shot themselves in the foot by not starting things off this way. I feel like this would have always been a smart decision to make from the beginning, though. It's a little bit awkward to walk back on day one games. I think there was always probably, when this was initially pitched, I think there was probably some room that could have been wiggled where, okay, well, we're going to have a subscription service, but like there's going to be like a really premium tier that gets you day one stuff and then a secondary one that doesn't, because we still need to sell games. But I feel like that window has long since passed. And so like trying to force that in now feels very awkward and it feels very ill-fated. It doesn't seem like a smart idea. As far as like the pricing structure though, like I feel like, I don't know, subscription services are going to go up. Everything's going to go up. I'm not really surprised by that. If you really boil down like how much it's going up, it's still like, I mean, Game Pass could be like significantly more expensive than it is, and it would still be like a really good value for if you're somebody who uses it a lot. So that doesn't really, I didn't really consider much about that, but that awkward removal of day one and first and second party, definitely we're going to see how that shakes up, especially with the coinciding of because I'm pretty sure they just launched on Amazon Fire or whatever the hell, the Game Pass app, where you
and
can
Jaffe
just, like,
Jaffe used it and said it works really well.
Yeah, I mean that's super fucking interesting. Like that to me is like way, if those two things coinciding with each other is very, very interesting. And I will be curious to see if this affects them at all, if this actually grows the service. I'm watching with bated breath this whole thing. But as far as like the pricing structure, I actually didn't really mind it that much. I feel like, you know, this is a luxury hobby. Subscription services are all going up. It's really unfortunate. I hate subscription services. They're really getting to the point now where it feels like cable again, except it feels like cable has infected everything now. Like, it feels like everything is cable. And I'm really not a big fan of that. So we're living in this hellscape now, and we'll just see how it goes. But I'm fascinated by it for sure.
Yeah, good insight. Dustin, what do you think?
I'm with Chris in that, yeah, the pricing increase isn't surprising, I guess, as Chris said, everything's going up. But it is the idea, and something we've talked about many times, is that they opened the floodgates for the day one releases, and that was their entire marketing and branding around Game Pass. Play it day one with Game Pass. You just get Game Pass and you get access to everything. And so now you have this situation where they're kind of trying to squeeze the genie back into the bottle. And I'm very curious how that will work out for them. In some ways, I feel like it's won't make a big difference for their console players specifically that have online, because the way it works is that, and I've been trying to get my head around this, and you see like there's all these charts out that explain the different things, is that if you want to play online, because Xbox Live Gold doesn't exist anymore, you now need Game Pass Core. And that is just the small selection of games and the ability to play online. Then there's going to be the new console Game Pass that you would not get access to day one games, but get the larger Game Pass selection. And if you only have that, you can't play online. So assumingly then, I would guess that most of their console subscribers would just get Game Pass Ultimate, which then they're only getting, what, I want to say it's like a $2 price increase or something like that, like not too much. So for a lot of them, it's not going to affect anything. And then there's the whole thing too, where the day one games will continue for their middle tier subscribers for a time, for existing subscribers. And then eventually they're going to get kicked off, and then they won't have access to day one games. And then, as you said, Colin, too, the PC gamer, I mean, they're the ones that are really making out at, $12 a month. They don't have to pay online, of course, because they're on PC, and they get the day one games immediately. So it's a really weird situation. And I posted this in the Last Stand in the staff chat for us. This was an article from March 8th, 2023 from Video Game Chronicle that says the headline, Microsoft insists Game Pass prices will not increase as a result of the Activision merger. And because that was a big thing that came up. It's like, oh, well, if you own all this stuff, then you'll have not a big monopoly, but what's stopping you from just increasing the price of Game Pass? And so I guess it's like, yeah, the price increase is small enough that it's doesn't feel like that big of a deal, but it's the removing of features that's like, yeah, this is definitely a result of the merger and Call of Duty showing up on the service. Absolutely. So it just feels like another one of those like Phil Spencer half truth, half lie situations that we keep finding over and over on the show that then we get ridiculed for. And then it's like, oh no, yeah, exactly. Xbox messaging being all over the place, and then they put their foot in their mouth. Another strong example right here. So
yeah.
Ultimately, like I said, I guess to conclude, ultimately, I don't think it will affect a lot of their core subscribers. But when you are trying to get new people into this service and then they have to look at a fucking chart in order to figure out what they're entitled to and what they're not and what they need to play online and what they don't, it's just,
yeah.
As much as I think that also PlayStation Plus with its core, extra, and premium is also a little confusing, it's not as confusing as this, for sure.
Yeah,
so
it's like the fucking Zelda timeline. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I actually agree with you guys that the price doesn't seem to be a huge deal because there is intrinsic value. What is it, like $20 a month now or $22 or something a month?
Yeah, I'll bring it up here.
And I'm like, yeah, that's going to be the cost of doing business. Did you really think that this was going to last at $10 or with your 36 months at $1 a month, like kind of nonsense? They're putting an end to all of it because of the deep level of manipulation. One of the big things, and I don't know if it was brought up, I don't think it was you used to be able to stack like years, and now you can only stack up to 13 months at a time, which just indicates that they're going to keep raising prices. So people that were cheerleading kind of the attempted monopolization of certain parts of console gaming by Microsoft just failed to see what I had said for a long time, which is like, you're absorbing the cost of those businesses. You're not only getting the end of the end result of selling the games, you have to make them now. You have to pay for them. You're absorbing all the marketing pipelines, like all these studios, all these heads. A lot of these people want to unionize. Like you got your hands full. Of course the prices were going to go up. So I'm not like shocked. I'm not on my fainting couch being like, oh my God, they raised the prices. It's just like, this is going to be the cost of doing business if you want this kind of service. And it's going to be way more expensive than this in the coming years. It's just going to go up. And it's funny reading some analysis now being like, yeah, maybe this was never really going to work and all this. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, dude. Like, how long have we been saying this on the show? Like, it's not sustainable without jacking the prices up. And there is some wisdom to the idea now that Microsoft has basically said, like, this isn't going to work. Like, we have to, in some way, reconvince our audience that we've convinced to not buy anything that actually maybe you do. This, I remember saying many times, and I was wrong about this, it was often said, like, will they ever remove day one access? And I'm like, you can't. Like, how can you? I never thought that they would split it like this and make basically a legacy PS Plus extra style product and then have the day one stuff along with all of that. And I think Jez, friend of the show, Jez Corden, spoke to Microsoft and they said something like, games will come to Game Pass. And it's not guaranteed that all of them will even come to Game Pass now, apparently, but like 6 to 12 months or beyond after a game is released. I think that like the problem from my perspective in Xbox's strategy is you kind of are trying to switch horses midstream. You kind of have to just go now all the way, don't you? Like, why make it so complicated? Just sell it as a premium option for people And they have to understand that getting $70 video games as part of your subscription or for free is going to come at a great cost. But I agree that if you play a lot of games, the value is still there. The value is still high, as long as you realize that you're locked into Microsoft's games and Activision's games and a selection of really underwhelming, usually free games or good indie games and smaller AA games. The one thing that's brought up to me, because you guys know I'm not a PlayStation Plus person at all. I don't want to rent games. I don't give a shit about any of that. I want to buy the games that I have and want to play, and I'm fine with that. And people can do whatever they want. But people are pointing out now that there is this kind of PS Plus Extra analog in Game Pass, PS Plus Extra is now substantially better than what they have going on without the day one stuff. In other words, I think it's something like 350 games to 800 with PlayStation. And I don't think anyone in the fucking universe would say that the first and second party games on Xbox have anything on the PlayStation first and second party games that are in PS Plus Extra. So to me, I just look at this and I'm like, I don't know. This is interesting. Sony has this kind of, because he asks here, Daniel, will PlayStation get a price change out now? And it's like, they could, but why? I mean, obviously you want to generate more income, but now you have like a positive comparator. It's like, okay, so now we both have these, we both have our PS Plus Extra, or our PS Plus Standard Edition, right? You have your Game Pass Core. We have PS Plus that gives you online access and a smattering of games. Okay, that's a wash, right? But we have this mid-tier, silver tier PS Plus Extra game catalog versus Game Pass's game catalog, and ours is cheaper and better. If I were in Sony's perspective, saying like, why don't we leverage that? And then you have this tier of day one access, which we don't compete with, and that's a whole other thing. And again, I'm saying this from Sony's perspective. So I just look at it and say, I think it's kind of a win for everyone. But I think that there is some wisdom. I saw someone write about it. I think it might have been GamesIndustry.biz saying something like Sony or Microsoft is kind of capitulating and realizing we need to make more money out of fewer people and understand that this is not going to be a permeating way to play games the way we thought it was. We all know, based both on the leaks out of Microsoft during the FTC stuff and the things that they said over the years, that they are far, far, far behind where they thought they would be and wanted to be in terms of a subscription trajectory. And the unfortunate thing for them is that the rubber's hitting the road with cost when they're about to release games that might be worthwhile to have the subscription service on. So what I suspect is that people are going to tune in and out, which is exactly what I do with subscription services now that I get for TV and movies. It's just that TV and movies are made differently than video games. They require a lot less from the audience, and there's more turnover there. These one-off games as subscription model prospects, it's just, if you think the price is going to stay here, you're wrong. Like the idea that they're stopping you from locking in many months of Game Pass just indicates that they don't want you to lock in more than a year or 13 months at a time, because the price is going to continuously go up. And there's nothing that screams sustainability like raising your price basically 2 times over since, launch. It's what I don't even need to slam, to slam dunk or anything. Like, it's what I've said the whole time. And not a huge surprise, but I do think that people are overstating, like, well, now there's like the fact that I think you spoke to this a little bit, Chris, is like, this is a boutique industry that requires a little bit of money to play around in, right? In a real way. And I'm of the mind, it's what I say with people on Patreon. It's like, if $5 a month is going to put you out, that's totally fine. I don't assume to know your financial situation, but definitely don't spend the money on podcasts or on video games. Like, definitely save your money and use it in a more worthwhile way. And I kind of look at that with, like, when it's something like this goes up $2 or $3 or $5, it's like, if that's really breaking things, then you got to reassess your financial situation. Not to say that your money's not valuable, but to say, like, are you spending your money wisely to begin with? I guess what I'm saying is Microsoft is counting on people not caring, because I think most people won't.
Yeah.
And for those that are happy to buy their games as they play them, which is most people, I think that nothing really changes. Microsoft just made a lot of bad choices. And I did say this to Jaffe too, and I'm sorry to keep referencing Moriarty Cross Jaffe, which you guys should go watch on Patreon, but it's like Sony showed a level of discipline that they deserve credit for, because there was probably a serious level of urgency about Game Pass for a while internally at Sony, knowing that Microsoft could use its funds to balance the scale in a way that Sony never could. In other words, they could eat losses after losses after losses in order to make this work, get it over the hump. And that was probably a pretty scary prospect. But it became quickly clear that most publishers with big games have no interest in putting their games on Game Pass. The only big games that go into Game Pass really are from first and second party. The first and second party output from Xbox has been poor until recently, and things just weren't lined up properly. It was a reading of the industry that I don't blame them for making. And like I've said many times, I think it was a wise choice to try to change the rules because they were losing. But the end result is that they've kind of undermined their ability to sell on their own console. Xbox Series is now tracking behind Xbox 360 and Xbox One in the United States, which is really bad news because this is the only mega relevant market for the hardware, which means I kind of get the fear that some Xbox fans have that like this is maybe the beginning of the end of what we understand as Xbox. But I think there's going to be one more console out. It just seems like there's no getting out of the tailspin from that perspective. And so you have to embrace Game Pass more as the Xbox brand moving forward. That's a lot, but that's how I feel about it. I think people thought I was going to like go crazy about this. And I'm like, it's just, the cost is the cost. You guys were getting this product. You're still getting the product for too cheap. I hope you all know that.
Yeah.
Like the product is not paying for the cost you're paying is not paying for the game's development. I've said this a million times. For some reason, this is like some thing that just most people don't get. You have to incorporate the cost of the games being made that you're not selling anymore. And that is expensive as fuck. Call of Duty? Every year? I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars per game. Without marketing, without all the other shit that you have to do and continuous support of these games. I mean, this is expensive shit. And it's no surprise that Microsoft bean counters are getting nervous. So I really want to see where this all goes, but I think that there's been a little bit of an over dramatization of the situation as well. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Will Sony raise their price? I don't know. It's irrelevant to me because I don't understand the value of any of this stuff really, unless you're super into just exploring the back catalog in a very intentional way. But I'd rather just buy shit. Dude, I just bought like fucking Warhammer Bolt Gun or whatever. Everything's on sale right now on PSN, like when you go and look. I bought it for like $10 or something. I'm like, this is a great deal. You know, can't go wrong. And then I'll play it when I want. I have to stop myself from buying shit on PSN because I'm never going to get to it anyway. Rainer38 wrote in and said, "Dear Sacred, I hope I find you all well. Colin, you recently walked away from Rise of the Ronin due to the difficulty level. I just finished it on easy. I'm a gaming retard and don't have your skills. Do you think there is a stigma attached to lowering the difficulty level in games, and would lowering the difficulty on Ronin have kept you playing? Thanks and stay well and keep pumping out the great content." It is interesting. There is a stigma attached to it, no doubt. Whether or not that matters to you or not is up to you. No one has to know. I guess you would see it in some people's trophies and achievements and stuff if you looked, but I have that stigma for myself. I didn't want to play Rise of Ronin on easy. I don't mind dropping a game's difficulty level if I'm deep into it or doing something optional or something is deeply annoying. So I've brought up the God of War Ragnarok and God of War 2018 Valkyrie fights, or not the Queen Valkyrie fight specifically. And recently I talked about how on Stellar Blade I dropped the difficulty on the last boss to easy because I was like, this is just annoying the fuck out of me. And I was surprised I even got that far into the game without dropping the difficulty, but I did. And so I don't really mind making that level of concession if I've invested time into it, if I just want to get this over with or just see something, whatever. But I don't want to play a game on easy. It's not about the stigma that what other people would think of me. It's just like, that's kind of lame in my opinion. Like I want to have like a normal, that's why I love difficulty when it's like not medium, but normal. That's a perfect nomenclature for it. It's like, I just want the game as is. I used to be much more bold in making the games harder, but I'm not good enough anymore to do that. And so I don't typically do that unless I have to for some trophies in the games I want to do that with. But I remember Wolfenstein 2 was so fucking hard in the rebooted Machine Game series that I was bummed that I had to play it on normal. I remember being depressed about that. It's like, this is so fucking hard. How can anyone play it on a harder difficulty level? And then there's that trophy, of course, for beating it on the hardest difficulty level without dying, which is like, okay. And you can't save scrub. You have to do it all in one shot. So I don't know. That's why I don't want to play games on easy. It's not so much for the stigma. It's just I don't feel like they're intended to be like that. I'm not trying to insult anyone. It's just I'd rather just not play it. Chris, where are you on this?
Yeah, I mean, I typically I don't know of any games that I've played on easy. It really depends on, I guess, what type of experience it is. Like if something is very, very story heavy and like that's kind of the main reason why I'm playing it, and I have a choice between, normal, hard, and easy, I will try like the difficulty level in between normal and hardest, like your heroic or hard in Call of Duty and whatever. But if I just genuinely don't like the way it plays, like if I just don't enjoy the combat at all, like it's like from like a game feel perspective, and it's a story based game, I'll bump that down to easy. Like I did that with the Witcher 3. The Witcher 3, I didn't care to get good at The Witcher 3. It didn't seem like, and it didn't even seem like the core of the experience of The Witcher was even in that anyway. It seemed to be more about the narrative and the characters and like the RPG, like quest lines and stuff like that. So I didn't really mind it. And I think it really depends on what the game is trying to do, what the game is going for, and what the focus of the game is. And that will kind of determine what difficulty I play it on. I really much prefer games that don't have a difficulty option at all and that are just simply designed with a specific. I think those games are often just better designed because there's just there's not as much of a split focus between like balancing for different, how does this affect, legendary, or how does this affect easy? Like how is this if we make this change to normal, is that going to tweak it on easy too much? It's like, I just think that there's like more of a clear focus in those games, things like Tears of the Kingdom and Elden Ring and those types of single difficulty games. Those are my preference. But I don't know. I guess it just depends on the focus. Most of the time, I will go for that sweet in between of in between normal and in between the hardest, where there's like enough of a challenge, but it's not fucking egregious. And if I really love the game and really respect it, and I really like the way it feels, and I love the way it plays, I'll go for that. And I really like respect it as a game. I'll go for that hard. I think I beat every single Halo and Gears of War game on like Insane and other things like that. And there's a couple of other ones too that I did that with. But the hardest difficulty is something I reserve for very, very rare occasions, because I just don't need to. I don't get the satisfaction that I used to out of that.
Dustin, speak on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you, Colin, in that I can't think of an instance that I've ever started a game on easy and played it on easy, but I have certainly bumped it down to easy when I've been agitated or annoyed or simply just don't want to do something. Last time I can think of doing this was in Persona 3 Reload. There's a trophy that you have to fight the Reaper, which is this really hard, long boss fight that's totally optional. I don't really care about doing that. I'm sure some people would enjoy it, but thought, I'm just going to put it on easy and clear it out. And I did. And so it's one of those things that I don't have anything to prove to anybody. So that's why I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to put on easy because I don't really want to do it, but I'd like to get the platinum. So whatever, it's an option available to me. I think that some of the stigma comes around, I don't know, do you think that maybe it's partially the conversation around like when games journalists were saying like, oh, I reviewed the game and I played it on easy and I'm proud of it and stuff like that, where it's like, okay, well, that's a different standard set where if you're reviewing a game, you're doing it to make a review to tell people about their purchasing decision and play the intended experience. And so, no, you shouldn't be playing the game on easy. Maybe you can talk about it if you had to put it on easy or whatever, but just setting out and doing the non-intended experience, I'm not so sure about that, right? But when it comes to anyone's personal play, I mean, whatever. If it's available and that's how you want to play and you enjoy the game that way, then do it. You don't. I understand that, especially in gamer culture, that there's this idea. I mean, we've set up these things to prove ourselves. Trophies, people posting clips, streaming, whatever. It's become this big thing. It's like how as silly as it sounds, how good of a gamer are you? What's your gamer credentials, right? So I understand that the culture pushes that way, but ultimately games are about having fun. And if you don't find normal fun, then you're missing the point. Lower it. It's fine.
Yeah. Don't worry about what other people think.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. All right.
It don't matter.
Caleb Greer wrote in, said, hey, CDC. With Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi 4 on the horizon, I refuse to call it Sparking Zero. Got me thinking, what would each of your respective beam clashes be? For example, Goku shoots his Kamehameha. How do you say this? I forget how to say this. Kamehameha, right? Wave, full send to Joe Biden, screaming whatever. I think Biden would respond with the loudest look fat he can muster and throw a fat man in the beam, locking them in a power struggle. I look forward to each of your answers. Chris, I felt like this would speak to you.
I'm kind of confused at the question because, like, so he's like, what your each of your respective beam clashes. For example, Goku, but then Joe Biden. So is it like what about this is my respective? You know what I mean? This is kind of worded strange. Is he asking me for like a hypothetical beam struggle between two fictional characters that aren't like, I don't know if I get it. Like, how'd you interpret this question?
I interpreted it just as like the unique DBZ like power that would find you in one of those 15-minute segments in the anime where everyone's screaming and the beam's kind of getting a little closer to one person or one person to the other. I don't know. Just a silly question.
Yeah. I'm trying to. I don't know. I feel like I would. If I had a beam, it would be just a wave of anxiety, but I wouldn't be able to aim it. Is the issue? I feel like it would just go in every direction. Then it was just like by nature of it going in every direction, it would have a pretty good struggle because it would hit the other beam, just not necessarily focused or on purpose. That's my power, I think.
Dustin, hit me with it.
Well, I was thinking about, Chris, your idea of the Seinfeld Mugen fighter. Maybe that's kind of the opportunity here where it's Goku versus, and surely Larry David would make an appearance in this, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what the powers would be. Now, he mentions Joe Biden here screaming. Just imagine the old man like, when he's trying to let out his ki there.
Yeah.
What if
a gentle wheeze?
Yeah. Look, fat, I got you. Something like that. What would if you had Joe Biden and Donald Trump fight cage match style? I mean, Trump would get out of breath real fast.
Yeah, he would, but I just feel like that would be unfair.
It would be. He's a tall boy.
Joe Biden could summon Corn Pop though to help.
Yeah,
Corn Pop
tags in Corn Pop. It's like Marvel vs. Capcom.
Marvel vs. Capcom.
I want this so bad. Like these like absurd. I know it would be expensive and annoying, and like the skill set to make these things don't really exist in the same way in independent dev circles as they maybe used to or traditionally would have. But oh my god, I would love a character action fighter based on just absurd, like Always Sunny versus Seinfeld character action fighter would be so funny, or just like these like insane ideas. I want to see them so bad. And they could be good. That's the thing. It's like they could be designed really, really fucking well. And then you'd be like, why is there so much good? Why is there so much effective talent put in this towards this unreasonable goal of creating this thing? I would love it so much.
Yeah.
I'm continuing to will it into existence.
Well, Jaffe would tell you AI would help you build that.
Don't need it.
Agreed. David Cotman wrote in, speaking of that, said, hey, CDC, I wanted to reach out about some of the concerns you have all shared about AI, specifically how it is defined in gaming. Recently, Todd Howard mentioned they use procedural generation for most of the open maps in Starfield. Where do you place the line on procedural generation as it shifts into AI? What is acceptable for how involved a human needs to be in every piece of game development? Thanks for bringing the energy you all do to every episode. I don't know. It's getting into a weird space. I mean, what is the point of living in what is the point of gaming in a world that wasn't created intentionally? Like the world just exists to justify space? I have a hard time dealing with that conceptually. If the world is too big to make, then the world is probably too big to exist in a video game.
And I understand that there's procedural generation of these worlds outside of Starfield and for years, and that it's not really getting into AI as much as it's just getting into like permutative computation. But I don't worry about it. People have to do what they have to do, and I guess people are going to have to buy games based on what they care about. But I just find it strange. In other words, I don't really get what we're trying to do here. We want to make the biggest and most complex games with as little of the human element as possible. I find this disturbing. And I just don't understand. I don't want computers making my games. It doesn't, again, it goes into the idea of people would be like, oh, you wouldn't even know the difference. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter, though. It matters. Just because I wouldn't know the difference, so you tricked me. Okay. I mean, if that's complimentary to you, then that's great. But I don't know, man. I don't understand how anyone looks at this other than making games cheaper to make, which is fine, but I don't know if that's the answer. You're just going to put people out of business. You're going to dehumanize the products. Why don't you just have your computers write your books? Maybe the computers can make your music for you.
Yeah.
Maybe they can just make all the assets. And then before you know it, it's like, well, what are you there for? What are you doing? I just don't understand what people don't see about this, but to each their own. Dustin, let's go to you first on this.
Yeah, well, there is already tons of procedurally generated stuff in games. And I'm not talking about a game like No Man's Sky. Like, from a development standpoint, any game that uses something like SpeedTree, like I brought up their website, and it literally says create and customize vegetation models with procedural generators and manual art tools. So
yeah, you see that on so many games. That's what I was saying, that stuff exists, but I do wonder to what end.
Right. And that's always the question, is that, and we've talked about this, and now, of course, there's a prevailing joke about my thumbnails being made with AI, right? It's like, there are certain AI tools that we have used for a long time, but they weren't looked at in an AI, questioned until generative AI really started to take off. And that's kind of a whole different thing, where it's like, okay, for SpeedTree, like, was SpeedTree, and maybe that's not a good example. Like, if you're using a generative model that you taught yourself, that uses what you've made as a starting point and then generates assets based on it. I'm not saying like all kinds of assets. I'm like saying like, okay, we want our trees to look like this. They're going to have these types of leaves, this type of, roots, whatever. And then it generates a bunch of them based on what you made. That's totally different to me than having a computer program that studied every tree ever made in video games and then spitting it out based on other people's work. I think that's a little different. And that's not to bring up the thumbnail thing, because I don't want to come off as defensive at all, because I know it's a joke. But the AI use in our thumbnails is like, okay, look at the rest of the image, and not from the internet. So this is like on my computer CPU. Generate this background because there's nothing there currently. This is a tool that Photoshop has used for years, but it wasn't until generative AI and stuff like Midjourney came up that it's like, oh, well, this is now an AI feature. And you see companies too clamoring over including AI in their yearly wrap-ups and stuff for stock prices. It's like, oh yeah, put AI in it as the buzzword, even though it's like a lot of these things used AI for years. It's just our perception of what AI is totally changed. But getting back to the core question, it's I wonder where it will end up, because you see so many companies moving and doing these types of things that I wonder if there will get to a point where some companies are like, well, really, what is the difference between what we've made and what we can use this software for to spit out? I don't know. I would never want something that is holistically made with AI, but I don't necessarily see a problem with certain tools in order to speed development up. But then you have to get into the nitty gritty. It's like, okay, well, how far do you let the tool go? I don't know. But I'm with you in that we don't want to lose too much of what it means to create something, especially if it's on the backbone of what other people have already created.
Chris, where would you take this?
I mean, that's ultimately where it comes down to is like the stolen work aspect of it, where you're not actually, because procedural generation has been around for a while in Bethesda games too. Like I'm pretty sure even Morrowind is procedurally generated on, or at least the landscape is. And they build unique assets on top of that, which in and of itself is like kind of like an interesting, very human thing anyway, because that's kind of what we do in the real world. We take the existing chaos of nature and like build our own stuff on top of it. Like there's nothing necessarily wrong with, you don't have to make the paint from scratch for it to count as a real painting, you know what I mean? But you still have to put paint to canvas in order for it to be yours. And I think that there's different ways in which AI can assist us that is very, very beneficial, or like even just something that you wouldn't necessarily call this AI, but even just something as simple as going from typewriters to word processors, or any number of like simplification, anything that simplifies our work as artists or creatives. Like there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. The issue is that when you use it to create something, all tools for creativity should be used to facilitate, to better facilitate a creative mindset and better facilitate creative work, not create work for us. And that's kind of like the problem with a lot of generative AI, is that it's just kind of like, all right, well, I have to design a character. So I'll just type in a prompt, right? And then it'll give me something, and then I'll just use that model. It's like, it's not really character design. You're just kind of stealing from everybody. And it's one thing I even think there's ways that you could even use things like that in an ethical way too. Like I think there's a way to even use generative AI prompts like that to even just to get your mind going. Like if you're an artist and you're like, I need some inspiration, let me like type up a bunch of random shit in this AI, and maybe I see something from this one generative image. I was like, oh, that's an interesting pattern. I wonder if I could tweak that and make that like something. Say, oh, generate it again. It's like, oh, that's an interesting color palette or whatever, and then merge all of that into your own unique thing. But that's kind of it has to be yours. Otherwise, it's not art. It's numbers, And so I don't know. Like I know a lot of people are banging the drum on AI, and they rightfully should, because it's it's advancing very, very quickly, and it's undoubtedly going to take a lot of people's jobs, because there's a lot of people who do not value the things that we value. And so I think it makes sense to make a big think about it and really like talk a lot about how it's going to affect our industry and just our culture in general. But I also don't think it's necessarily something that can't be used ethically or responsibly or smart. It's just, I don't know. My faith in that ability is very, very low, because we're just not really responsible with the tools that we have. We're not responsible with cars. We're not responsible with guns. We're not responsible with anything that we make that could be used responsibly. So, I mean, why the fuck would AI be any different? And so that's kind of that's the doomer in me talking. But, I don't know.
I think you guys both make really compelling points. Like I'm probably too militant. Like I need to calibrate how I feel and where I am on this. But I just know in my heart that this is fucked up, and the trend is not good.
Yeah.
And it's not, it needs to be noted that, because I think some people bring up, it's like it's out of self-preservation in some way. And I'm like, it's really not. Like, I'm fine. Like, it's about the preservation of what we love and like how it's made and why it matters.
Right.
And that people can't imagine caring about something that doesn't affect you is a little sociopathic in some sense. It's like you can't understand that someone would feel a passionate way totally divorced from it affecting them in any material fashion. It's like, okay, I'm sure the AI games are going to be great. You could feed Mega Man 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 into an AI and say, make the perfect Mega Man stage, and it would. But it's cooler that people design them on graph paper and translate them into games, in my opinion.
Colin,
Right.
Here's one other detail I just wanted to... I looked this up because I remember hearing about it at some point here on Guerrilla Games' website. There's an entire presentation about how they used GPU-based procedural placement in Horizon Zero Dawn back in 2017. I was looking at this PDF, and it says, we use procedurally placement for all nature, 500 plus assets. I think 100,000 plus objects in the scene, and it goes through all about how they use procedural placement for the entire map. So I don't know. This isn't a new thing, I guess, is the point.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, like I said, I'm probably too militant, and I have to calibrate based on like the realities of how games are being made. And like I said at the top of my own thing, I'm like, I know that procedural generation is used in development. It has been for years. Like I know that, but it's, is it done for creative reasons or is it done to save money? And I understand that these are often deeply intertwined at the AAA space and all market spaces, but certainly in the AAA space. But if I was making a world like Horizon's United States or post-apocalyptic United States, I'd be like, I'd want to make it. Right? I know these are huge places. We used to make fun of Far Cry Primal for using the same map that Far Cry 4 used, which it did. It was the same topography. It was just seeded with different trees and rocks. But if you place them next to each other and over each other, the geometries are exactly the same. And we all thought that was fucking lame. You know, and I loved both of those games, but it is lame. And it's surprising to me that maps are big enough to make naturally, maps are so big that they can't be made naturally, and we still want to play in them. And I think actually the most compelling argument for it is kind of the chaotic thing Chris was saying about like that is what nature is. We find it, and then we build atop it. It's like, okay, I mean that's one way to argue it. And that's fine.
I think the breadth of a lot of games that use it just kind of depend on, like, you can't, I guess you could spend time convincingly making like a really, really large map by hand, but it's a lot. I feel like I almost think of it like a marble statue in some way, where it's like the marble is there, right? And you're chipping away at it to kind of shape it into something that is bespoke and very, very, and that couldn't exist really as effectively without your input. Otherwise, it would just be a slab of marble. Like a procedurally generated wasteland, unless that's the point of it, like in Starfield, when you like land on a barren planet, and the kind of the point of it is that it's kind of like barren. There's no real artistic merit to it if you're just gonna leave it there. The whole point is that you're chiseling. Okay, it's like, okay, now that I have like an idea of like what this landscape looks like, let me chisel out a path, and you could get inspired by it too. It's like, okay, well, the map kind of naturally like has like a mountain, like a mountain looking, like a hump over here, and then like another hump over here. Like I could raise those up and turn those into mountains, and then like I've got like a valley, and then like what foliage do I place there, and like do I want to build a path through that? Oh, maybe I could put a cave in that. Like there's like a spark there that like is that is conducive to making art. I think there's a difference between this type of thing and something that is generating an image or generating an asset based on millions of other people's stolen IP and stolen work. You know what I mean? Like I think one is a tool that helps inspire, and one is just stealing. And I think it's pretty clear that I understand why it feels like that line is kind of abstract in the way that we talk about like procedural generation and all that stuff. But I actually feel like it's pretty, if you boil it down to like what is stealing and what is being used as a tool for inspiration, I think it's very clear what the line is. Like there's like a game, I can't remember, forgive me, I wish I could remember exactly which one, but there was some game that got flack for having an AI, or maybe it wasn't a game, I think it was actually a movie. I think it was that oh my god, that Late Night with the Devil or something. Do you guys remember hearing about this at all? Like it was like a movie, it's like I think A24, I might be mistaken, I don't know. The details of this are kind of lost on me, but there was like a controversy about a painting or an image in that movie that was just completely AI generated.
Yeah, I'm reading it here. In the week leading up to the film's release, some reviewers pointed out the use of an AI-generated art in a montage, which was not present in the version screened at South by Southwest, and called for a boycott of the film.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a more lenient use of it. I still think they shouldn't have done that, but like it's kind of, I mean, the rest of the movie is actually pretty interesting. But yeah, like that to me is like, well, that's stolen because it's AI generated and it's being used in a way that's like it's just ripped from the internet, basically, in some weird amalgamation. Now, I actually think it'd be one thing for you to generate an image with AI and then kind of have an artist use that image as like a reference or something, because like artists do that all the time. You know, they use look at real images from like real movies as the references, or like maybe even like they have, I'm sure you guys have seen those like artists posing things, those like featureless kind of posing dummies that they use to kind of figure out proportions. Like there's all sorts of ways that artists reference real world material or things that they see and like translate it into their own work. And I think there's a way to do that, but like to just take an AI generated image and just rip it straight up without any of your fucking input in it is crazy. And I think it's lazy and boring and bland, and it doesn't really qualify as real art if you're just going to do that. So I mean, I don't know.
This is
but,
a deep, incredibly deep issue.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of arguments for either way, but that's kind of the way that I see it. Procedural generation is carving something out of existing marble, and AI is just copy pasting a statue that already exists. And I think the dividing line between those two things are pretty obvious, I think.
David Common, thank you for writing in. Ride a Space Cowboy wrote in and said, "Dear Naughty Dogs and Naughty Bears, particularly Colin, given your formal training in history during undergrad and your love of Civilization VI, what are your hopes and dreams for the recently announced but still in production queue and many turns away Civilization VII? What new civs would you like to see make the roster? Who would you want to lead America in its quest to stand the test of time? What new gameplay mechanics would you want Firaxis to implement? Please use this as an excuse to talk about Civilization at length." I wanted to talk about this from a specific angle, because we often talk about being hardcore about games and like really into games and knowledgeable and involved, right? And the stuff we love. Civilization is one of the, and I don't know if you guys have this example in your own life. I've played Civilization 4, 5, and 6 for hundreds of hours combined. I consider myself deeply casual about it, though. I said famously until I played Civilization 6 and really went and looked up, I'm like, what don't I understand about this game? And realized I didn't understand almost anything about it compared to how deeply I was playing it. That I don't even know what people want. I'm not even sure like what you could add. I'm not sure like what the most hardcore Holly-like figures in the world that play Civilization, like what are they looking for? This is a great example of me. This is the biggest example of me having an inverse relationship between hours played and my involvement in the game as like a fandom or anything. Like I couldn't even really tell you the differences between 4, 5, and 6, apart from UI changes and some different depth and units and like obviously civilizations that you can choose from and all the different military units that they have and everything, but they're all kind of the same to me. So I wanted to bring that up as kind of a self-deprecating thing to say like, I don't know. I have no fucking idea. Like I really don't. I'm just not that into it, though I play it so extensively. I don't know if that makes sense. But if you ask me like, oh, what do you want out of The Last of Us Part 3? Or I can give you like an hour-long soliloquy about like what the new BioShock could be. But I don't know. I have no idea. Dustin, how does that resonate with you?
It resonates a lot in that people ask me all the time, specifically, what do you want the next From Software game or the next Persona game to be like? And yeah, I'm deeply involved. I've played all of the, all the Souls games, whatever. But they're the type of company that I trust them to just make something interesting or something I've never thought of. I guess pre-Elden Ring, you could say, yeah, an open world Dark Souls game would be cool. But I honestly don't know if I would have said yes that I want that, because with all the open world fatigue, the last thing I'd want is one of my favorite games ever to go open world and potentially dilute the experience. But then they went and made Elden Ring and completely changed the game, I think, in terms of a lot of open world games. So I feel the same way about Civ. It's been probably 2 or 3 years since I really was playing Civ 6. But Colin, you mentioned Holly. I asked her this exact question. I was reading the notes and I said, what do you want out of the new Civ? And she gave me some notes. So
good.
I'll go through these here. She says,
yeah. So she's an expert. Yeah, let's hear it.
She says religious victories need improvement. They take too long and they aren't fun to go for. So that was the first one. The other thing she said is that she wants more nuance between the different civs, because right now when you play them, you usually just get like one perk or one bonus, like a unit or something like that. And so she wants them to see them be more unique and have more unique strategies between them. She also wrote, so Civ 6, I think the second expansion, I can't remember what it's called, but one of them added natural disasters. And she was suggesting that it would be cool if they added unnatural disasters. So the examples she said were a global pandemic, a nuclear disaster, and not like someone shoots a nuke at someone, like their nuclear power, like a Chernobyl situation, an economic global crash, an EMP, a blackout, something like that. And even, this probably would be too wacky for Civ, but imagine a late game scenario where another civilization of aliens shows up on the map that is extremely powerful. Something like that. Super cool. The last thing she said here was she'd like to see, despite she's not expecting this, but more controversial civs like North Korea, USSR, or maybe even a situation where there's a Nazi civ.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Because it's funny, man. What I've always respected in some way about a lot of 4X games, like real deep strategy games, like the Paradox stuff and all that, is like, just as an example, is like they don't seem to give a fuck about like if you're playing as the Nazis in one of these World War II tank games, you're not a Nazi. Mm-hmm. You're playing with their technologies and all that. It's like playing Axis and Allies at the board game.
Yeah.
Civilization is very mass market, so it's going to be difficult to do stuff like that. But it would be interesting, like if you played as Hitler, as like your civilization, or like your George Washington or whatever, your Montezuma or whatever the fuck it is, what would his advantages be, and all of that? Could you do that in good taste? Same with Stalin or Lenin,
right?
Like you said, Kim Jong Il or Kim Jong Un, Kim Il Sung would be cool. So that would be interesting. That would be ballsy.
Yeah. The last thing she said, which I also think this is cool, is that having multiple leaders that you can choose from for civs. So for the United States, you could pick George Washington, or that has certain perks, or you could play as, I don't know, Ronald Reagan or something and have different perks there. So you can kind of have multiple options per civilization based on the leader.
Yeah, that would be cool. Anything strike you with this, Chris? Any game you're like really into but still casual about?
I don't know. I feel like nothing strikes me real. I feel like maybe I feel like the Souls games, I guess, in some way. Like I'm unquestionably like very, very into Elden Ring, but I'm also like not as into it as like there's very, very clearly entire builds and entire mechanics in this game that I'm not really engaging with at all. Like very clearly. And so I don't know. I don't. If I was asked about like what I would want out of these games, I feel like I would be the wrong person. You know what I mean? I trust. If there's a game that I like that like I only know a little bit about, I trust that whoever's making it understands it way better than I do. But I will say, tie into something that we were talking about earlier about X-Defiant. Just let me trust your geometry. That's it. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. Don't lie to me with fucking geometry. It's the worst feeling in the world.
Collision.
Terrible. Civilization, my favorite RTS.
James Hill wrote in, final inquiry, says, hi CDC. What's up with all these right-wing grifter gaming influencers? We have people defending messaging minors, trying to cancel gay guys, calling women whores, and creating a fake reward show to take back gaming with an annual membership. These freaks belong in the industry as much as the writers from Kotaku. Why do you guys think gamers are such easy prey for these grifters? Have a great day. I think you're talking about a load of different people, and I'm probably not even familiar with all of them, to be honest with you. But I know that one of the people you're talking about is Craig, who's trying to do like this new game award thing. It's funny because what's his new show called? Side Scrollers, right? He was the founder of Screw Attack, and which was totally apolitical, as I remember. And I met him. We worked with Rooster Teeth at the same time when I was with Kind of Funny. And he's a nice guy, and he has this new kind of project that he's doing that definitely does seem to be more right-wing coded and kind of culture war coded. But there's a few things I want to say about this that I think will give people some perspective, in my opinion. The first thing is that I think that like the grifting, in quotes, is a result of a very monotypical culture in gaming where there is no right-wing outlet. There is no conservative or Christian outlet or whatever the kinds of things that you think people are kind of grifting upon. And so some people are certainly taking advantage of the vacuum by grifting and putting on an act. But I think some of it comes off as grifting too, because there's no analog, because there's no need to grift like there's nowhere to be. Like the in other words, the power structure is left wing. The power structure is liberal. So it's kind of unfair to, I think, label everyone like that, because then it just indicates that anyone with a right-wing perspective is grifting, and that's nonsense. The reason that those things stand out in many ways is because that it's so unbalanced. And I don't think people think about that very often, and I think that that's an important point. But as far as this like take back gaming thing specifically, and like this new award show, it's funny because Craig and I talk behind the scenes once in a while, and he reached out to me about this in the spring, like months and months ago, about helping him with it, or like being on their board of like people that would help them kind of get this going. And I'm like, I really, don't have the time to even do this. Like I have my own ideas I want to do. And I was reading when I was wrote to him, and I also said something like, it doesn't really, I believe that there could be a competitor to what Jeff does, like a less markety, more grassroots game award show. But what I didn't want to tell him, because I don't want to discourage people from pursuing these things, and I don't want to be mean to my friends or people that I consider, that I'm friendly with, is I just don't give a fuck about award shows. It's hard for me to be passionate about something that I think is meaningless. People might not have noticed, and almost no one said anything. We didn't even do Game of the Year this year. I don't know if anyone even like.
I don't even think I know.
But I was like, I don't know. Like, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, why are we judging games like this? Like, who cares what game wins an award? That, to me, I just don't give a shit. I don't want awards. I don't care about awards. I don't want to give them. I used to vote in the Game Awards for years as a voting member, but it's hard with his particular project. It's hard for me to get passionate about it because I simply just don't care. Now, what I told him in our messaging was the major thing that I was worried about. I didn't want to be involved. I didn't have the time and the inclination. I knew that personally. But one thing I did express to him was like, I just don't want to be associated with some of the people that you're associating with this project. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being on a show with someone or interviewing someone or even the most contentious shit in the world. But I don't want to be professionally involved with some of these people. Like, I just don't like what they say. I have the right to not like what some people say, to not agree with their approach culturally or whatever. And I don't want to, it doesn't mean that you can't do that. I don't want to take you down. I don't want to deplatform you or remove your ability to speak. I just don't want to be professionally involved with it. So it's funny because a lot of people call me, well, not a lot of people, I guess, but vocal people online would be like, Colin's a right-wing grifter. And I'm like, I'm not really sure what you're talking about. Like,
yeah,
I don't think just because things are right-wing or conservative make them grifting. This word has been, first of all, this is another word, and I'm sure that Google academic or whatever, or scholar would show this, is like the word, no one used the word grifting until 10 years ago, or probably not even then. The reason I know what the word grifting is, and this is fucking nerdy as hell, is because there is a 311 Transistor album B-side called like Grifters Party or something like that. And I remember looking it up 20 something years ago. And that's the only reason I even knew what that word meant until more recently. And now everyone that you disagree with is a grifter. Everyone that's making money doing something is a grifter. It's like, I don't know about that. So do I think that like the approach that Craig is taking with Take Back Gaming and the award show and all that is the right approach? No. And I wouldn't have involved myself with something like that, even if everything else was perfect. I don't like the idea of people paying for things like that. It's just, but it really just goes in. It's not because I think it's grifting. I think it's cool that people try things. Like, I think it's cool to make an attempt. It's easy to kind of like throw sand in someone's face when they're trying to do something.
Right.
I don't like that mean-spiritedness about just trying to take the piss out of everyone. Is it going to work? Of course not. Like, but it doesn't mean that people shouldn't try, and it doesn't mean that they're trying to put on a show just to make money, because as you said, James, in your thing, it's like these guys deserve to be in the industry as much as the writers from Kotaku, but how are the Kotaku people and like the people on the other side are cartoon characters of their own kind too, and yet they have the right to say and do what they want. So I just don't want to. The culture war is interesting, and I think it's worthwhile to fight in it on certain fronts and have things to say about it, but it's become all, people are immersed in it. And I want to just deal with it as it pertains to things that are important to me. I don't want to just be a culture warrior. And I don't want to find things like that Star Wars show, The Acolyte. I'm never going to watch it. I don't give a fuck about it. But I see the conversation about it. It's just another tentpole in the culture war. And I just don't find pleasure in that. So there are some weird people out there, and you talk about at least the things they believe, like trying to cancel people and calling women names and defending, I guess, what Dr. Disrespect or other people did or whatever, or is purported to do. But I don't know, man. I just want to focus mostly on what I want to do. It would be fun to talk to some of these people and see what they think. And I know our audience is mature enough to know that that's nothing more than a conversation. But this stuff has become deeply personal, I think, in a way that's more complicated than people give it credit for, in the sense that a lot of it comes from a very monotypical, totally controlled media that spawns this kind of shit. These things don't come out of nowhere. There's always a cause and effect. So I've gone on a long time there, but that's how I feel about it. Dustin, do you have anything you want to add?
Here's specifically about this Real Game Awards situation and why I think I understand the grifting aspect. Like, I'm on their main page right now. I'll just read a couple segments from it. So he has this thing about why the Real Game Awards exists. See, I want to ensure your voices are heard and respected in an industry that often overlooks your perspective. Join me as we take games back to gamers from all this insanity. And then above the pledge support, it says, if you're tired of the nonsense and are ready to take action, now is the time. As we get closer to the award show, the price to nominate and vote will go up. This is designed to avoid bad faith voting and funny business. With that said, whatever price you join at will be the price you stay at for life. So to nominate and vote is $30 a year. And there's this pitch of like, the gaming industry's bad and you're not respected. And we're here to fight back. And you can help us for $30 a year to have your voice heard. I don't know. That kind of spells it out pretty clear to me why people feel this way. I haven't looked extensively, but just simply from looking at this main page, and I don't know Craig. I know he's been on our show before, and I don't want to disrespect him in any way, but this page feels gross to me. So
yeah, I honestly haven't even really looked into it, to be honest, other than what we discussed behind the scenes.
Yeah, I agree that I would love to see someone compete with Jeff and maybe even have this, I guess, kind of angle to it, but it can't be done. It shouldn't be done with this kind of pitch that involves a $30 monthly, oh, not monthly, $30 yearly, excuse me, $30 yearly membership with the angle of we're going to take down the system. Just present your credit card and you can be a part of the movement. Yeah. So I don't know. And just as far as this whole situation with the right-wing grifters in general, I mean, there's a huge element too that I don't think it's the only element, because I see people lean that this is exclusively the reason, which I don't think is the case, but there is money to be made, clearly, whether it's doing something like the Real Game Awards or just simply Twitter monetization of being provocative, certainly. And some people do feel this way, where they feel like they're being, their voices aren't heard or that they're being beaten down. And so, yeah, they're going to be drawn to people like that feel like can be their voice that's bigger than them. Unfortunately, I think that some of these people do have ulterior motives, or just in general, morally, aren't the people you should look up to or support. And I'm not talking about Craig specifically. I'm just saying in general right now. So don't get that mixed up. So I don't know. It's going to come down to your own morals, because maybe you see some of these things people say and you agree 100%, and cool, that's your right. But you got to be careful, I guess, is what I'm saying with some of these people, because the ulterior motives are out there.
Chris, what do you have to say?
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. I think we are in an era of sensationalism, and I think sensationalism sells and is sexy. And I think, oftentimes the truth is very, very boring. And so people who are, I don't even want to say like necessarily in the middle ground or centrist, but people who are just generally speaking in a way that is a little bit more level-headed it's just not really that interesting to viewers. It's not really that enticing to viewers. And so I think naturally, especially after the apocalypse in 2017, I feel like when, before then it felt like you could really profit on the internet if you were doing something that you were talented at and were passionate about and cared about. But then the rules kind of tightened, and then it kind of became, well, it's like, well, I don't want to lose my money. I don't want to lose my income. And so what do I do? It's like, oh, well, there's a lot of money in pandering, straight up. I'm going to tell you, there's an insane amount, I don't know why necessarily. I'm sure there's like a bunch of psychological reasons, but there's a ton of it. And, I think it's good business for people to pander. It's good business for people to, grift. I don't know if there's as many grifters as people suggest. There are definitely a few. I'll just like Candace Owens is 100% like not.
Yeah,
like,
I've never liked her.
Like there's I don't know if you guys saw, there's this recent thing that she was talking about. It's like, well, I'm not a flat earther or a round earther. It's like, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah, I've always found her completely obnoxious, especially because she used to be like a liberal, No,
I was one of the first people to call her out a long time ago. Because she used to run a doxing website to attach people's online anonymity to their real life, and so that people could call their businesses and stuff. It's complete, absolute grift lord for sure. If there ever was one that was like, I don't even feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, she's in Holocaust denial mode now too, which is really fucking.
Yeah, it's weird. Just and that's kind of the thing where it's like, dude, I don't mind other perspectives in media. Like, I don't care if there's like a left-wing perspective or a right-wing perspective, but like, dude, like, the one thing that I would ask of the right is that, like, could you prop up people who aren't crazy? Specifically, like, you don't need, like, I don't know why you need Candace Owens. Like, that's crazy, and not that she's like specifically related to gaming. There are a few others that, like, I don't know whether or not they're grifting is kind of up in the air. I do think some of them maybe were a little bit more center-minded, and maybe over the course, if you're even if you're lightly pandering to a certain audience, there's like a certain feedback loop that happens where you begin to kind of drink your own Kool-Aid and you kind of lose the plot a little bit. This happens in every facet, obviously, degrees depending and volume depending. But I just feel like, I don't know if there's as many right-wing grifters coming into the gaming space. I just think that there are a few, but I think it's mostly to do about just profit. I think it's sensationalism sells, and you got to make your money, and everything's dire, and it's been getting direr and direr for decades now. And so, like, I don't even know, like, there's part of me that almost feels like I can't even really fault anybody for doing this stuff, because why the fuck, like, why wouldn't you? Honestly, like, there's a moral line there for sure. You are taking advantage of people who feel downtrodden and kind of like essentially like misleading them for your own profit and whipping them up into a frenzy and making them angry at the world around them, to the point where it's like, I do kind of feel like if everything is the culture war, then nothing is, but I don't know, man. It's fucking expensive. Existing is expensive. So, do what you got to do. It doesn't mean I got to co-sign it or, involve myself in any way with it. I'm definitely going to say how I feel about it, but like,
right. Instead of like, I think you guys are totally right. And I think you guys make great points. I just want people to kind of check their assumptions about what it means to be counterculture, and that some of it is earnestly done and is necessary. But I don't really consider myself counterculture at all. I'm more of just like an observer, and I think a good communicator, but I don't always communicate well. And a lot of people don't always communicate well. So I try to, I don't want to name names either. Just there are certain people where I'm like, no, like there's just no way I'm like going to associate with you anymore or again or ever. But then there are people where I'm like, I would still talk to this person and be interested in understanding them more or whatever. And
yeah.
What I think is funny is that just the grifters that I would identify as like people that are grifting are like some of the most unsuccessful people in the space, like the desperate hangers on, the people that like make content about other people, the people that clip out other people, the people that make shit up and start rumors and all those kinds of things. It's like, that's not only grifting, but it's like kind of desperation. And in some sense it's sad. So I try not to get too involved in even worrying about that either.
Yeah.
All right. Well, James, thanks for writing in. Hope that was a useful conversation for you. That's all we have for this episode of Sacred Symbols. So let's say goodbye. Chris, goodbye to you, my friend. Be well. Am I allowed to do this? I forgot. Where did we leave this last week?
That's right. Oh my god, I think it's allowed.
Okay,
I think the council will permit it.
Good.
But man, yeah, I don't know. I gotta make myself some. This really terrible sleep I had last night really fucked me up today. I feel it's really annoying. Like I don't like this. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, maybe I'm hungry. I should eat. And then maybe I'll pass out from. Maybe I'll have. You know what? I'll go into a food coma. I think.
Yeah, that sounds
I
nice.
think it'll be good for me. I definitely got to catch some Z's.
Dustin, goodbye to you. Enjoy the Trump rally.
Oh man, dude, I honestly, I'm very curious about the chaos here in little old Butler, PA. What's going to happen? Just because I've heard from people that there are a lot of people that don't even know you need to register to go, and so there's going to be all these boomers that just ascend, hoping to get in. So that's just going to add even more chaos. But I'm going to stay away from the chaos this weekend. Like I said, hanging out for my one friend's birthday. Butler Toy Show this weekend at the Dead Clearview Mall. So usually there's always games there too. So I'm going to go to that, keep it low key. And yeah, thank you for having me once again for one of the last times.
Yeah, you're on the clock. All right, my friends. Well, good to be here with you. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of all things Sacred Symbols, Last Stand Media, etc. Couldn't do it without you. Patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access and RSS feeds and inquiry submitting and Sacred Symbols Plus and all the rest. And go to bit.ly/ what is it? Sacred. What I have it here. Sacred Dukes. I want to make sure. Yeah. bit.ly/Sacred Dukes, SACREDDUKES for tickets to our San Diego show September 6th. Please come and support us. We'd love to see you there. All right. We'll see you next time for more. Hopefully it'll be a longer show next time or not. I don't know. We're just going with the motions of the ocean here.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the rest of the summer brings us. But until then, be well. Talk to you later. Goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.